I will stand. I will not allow that. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Evening by the Sergeant Arms. I was expecting the whole board to be first to present at this hearing. I think it'll be represented by the chairman, Mr. Mark Mendiola, and then there'll be excuse. Then it'll be followed by the superintendent and his staff. Then immediately after that, it'll be followed by the principals. All right, Mr. Superintendent? The Committee on Appropriation convenes this FY 2020 budget hearing for the Guam Department of Education. Budget hearing notices were given to the media on Monday, February 25th, 2019. Second notice, which is changed with time change, Wednesday, February 27th, and then Thursday, February 28th, 2019. And for the record, today is Tuesday, March 5th, 2019. The time now is 2 o'clock. The Committee on Appropriation will hear and accept testimony pertaining to the Department of Education. I'd like to acknowledge the senators that are present today. To my left, immediately, is the the chair of Education, Vice Speaker Talina Nelson, Senator Will Castro, and to my immediate right, I have Senator Tello Taidegui, and to her right would be the Vice Chair of Committee on Appropriations, Senator Clint Rigel, and the Committee on Rules would be Senator Regina Lee. Okay. General rules for budget hearing. The conduct of this budget hearing shall be as follows. Those testifying will be recognized in the order of sign up on the sign-in sheet. Written testimony may be read. Lengthy written testimony should be minutes. When we do get to the superintendent, it'll probably be a little bit longer, but it's understood because you would have to explain your whole budget. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide our legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimony shall be confined to the substance. Individuals will be allowed to present oral testimony only once. Once you are done, you may be asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony, or may be desired by members of the panel. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. And you will state your name for the record. I advise everybody that after you give a testimony, please refrain from raising your hand to be recognized because you won't be. If there's any questions that need to be asked by any of the panel, my colleagues, they will address it to you if need be. So just be reminded of that. We will now begin to hear testimonies from the chairman of the Department of Education Board, Mr. Mendiola. Sir.
Hafide, good afternoon, honorable senators. Eu agradeço esta oportunidade de mensahe na Biba Sakan Samoro. We're very grateful for the opportunity to be here. Along with me is my vice chairperson, Ms. Maria Gutierrez, Mr. James Lujan, who is the chair of the Facilities Committee, Dr. Ron McNitch, and Ms. Lou Beneventi. Also, for the record, I would like to state that an invitation was extended to the superintendent, to our administrators to also be here. But in particular, I also want to recognize a couple of other stakeholders that are in the room. Of course, we have the Honorable Rudy Matanani, who is also on our board. And I also want to recognize that we have parent-teacher organization leadership in the gallery. And the reason why we wanted our stakeholders here, because I'm pretty sure, Mr. Chairman, that you have sat on this side of the table with respect to how budget is formulated within the Department of Education. So just for, I guess for everybody and the folks out there listening to this hearing, it's really driven, our budget is driven at the lowest level. When I say the lowest level, where our communities are at. And once that budget is formulated by the administration of the school and the teachers, it is vetted by the parent-teacher organization, who then forwards it up to the principal forwards it up to leadership forwards it up to the superintendent, and of course, then it comes to the board committee on budget and finance, which I also chair. And then once that is been vetted through our process, it goes to the board for full consideration, and we take action on it, and we meet the deadline of January 30th where the budget is submitted. For the record, also, I would like to recognize the good work of Senator Talina's office during this whole entire budget process. She actually had staffers come to our budget hearings. We hold our committee work, and there was questions that were asked and things that were put out there. So I really appreciate that working relationship, Senator. Thank you very much for allowing your staff to be a part of that. In addition to that, we also stream live, just like you folks do here. We stream live on Facebook. We try to engage as much as possible with our stakeholders, especially when it comes to the finances of our Department of Education. And so I can honestly say that we have been inclusive in this process. We have given ample enough time and for the superintendent and his team to vet the numbers. And the board has basically primarily given him the direction in which we believe that the Department of Education should be focused on. Number one is safety of our children, ensuring that every child that comes on our campus is in a safe learning environment. Number two, that we have a robust curriculum, that when our students graduate from our programs and our schools, that they are globally competitive, that they're able to go out there and be able to go into the job market or go into the pipeline of education, so to speak, at the Guam Community College, University of Guam. Of course, we would love them to stay on island, because when they stay on island, that means this is home and that they will contribute back to our lives, our livelihood here in Guam. And then number three is to ensure that our facilities, and that's one of the biggest challenges, and I'm pretty sure many of you senators are aware of the challenges we're faced regarding our facilities. And so if you look at our budget, it's primarily focused around those three areas. In previous legislation, in the wisdom of the previous legislature, they've come up with the 14 points. And that has always been a major issue, and we had this discussion with Senator Talina Nelson and her staff, and also with Senator San Agustin on what it means to that on those 14 points. Well, this was legislation and law that was vetted many years ago, and today that's what we use as a template to provide numbers. You want certified teachers in all the classrooms? That's what it's going to cost. You want certified administrators? That's what it's going to cost. You want good working air conditioners? Well, that's what it's going to cost. And these numbers were not just haphazardly put together by a group of folks that said, okay, we're going to give the legislature a blank, basically a blank number and say this is what, we're here to justify what those numbers mean. And I understand where we're at in terms of our government, in terms of our resources that are limited. I understand the importance, but the Department of Education has always been at the forefront in times of emergency, like the recent typhoon that we just went through. None of our employees really got recognized out there for manning the shelters. I mean, these are employees that take time away from their home, from their families, and man the shelters so that we can accept our most vulnerable citizens that could be hurt during storms. In addition to that, we have large community events that the Department of Education, we got teachers that actually go above and beyond. So I ask, as you deliberate and as you hear the numbers being thrown out there, that you actually put a value to what we're really investing in as a people. This is a community issue. We have a lot of issues facing us, a lot of challenges, but I think, and I hope that you would agree with me, that an investment in education, in our education today, we're going to see the rate of return on investment in the new future. We're having issues with the H-2B visas. It would be awesome if we can crank out students from our public school system that are ready to work in the trades academy or in the trades. In addition to that, if our students are prepared to compete globally and attend the University of Guam, get their advanced degrees, and contribute. Now we have a degree program for engineering. We're going to have locally homegrown engineers on our island. So as we on the board look at all the different aspects of education, we're not just looking at the Department of Education, but that whole pipeline of how we're going to get our students to be successful and contributors back to our island, to our way of life. So this is serious business for us, and I think everyone around this table, we're here. I'm grateful for the principals. I thank them this morning for their support. I believe that they have done their best to provide the most accurate information to us, and that we, the board, has approved this budget, and we're here to basically justify the need. Every year we request about a $300 million budget, and oftentimes we get about a $100 million cut right off the bat. And so I know as elected leaders on the board, we have to work with our elected leaders. So we're always open to working with you folks in revenue generating ideas, solving some of the problems that we're faced with in the department. I'm confident in the leadership of our superintendent. I think he has a good management team. Actually, I know he has a good management team because when we go into these committee meetings, I'm confident in what they're sharing with us, is basically what they're asking us to consider. And so on behalf of the Board of Education, my colleagues on the board, of course, our rank and file employee, Jesus Masi, and I hope that you, ask the questions so that we can provide those responses. And I look at this more of a active dialogue. I hope that people are not going to feel that we're going to solve all the problems in one sitting, but a continual movement forward. And so with that, Undunkulina Jesus Masi, and I'll pass it on to the next speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have listed here Mayor Matanani from Jigu. You wanted to speak? Sir, you may. Because you're part of the Board of Education, so I prefer you first before I get to the superintendent.
Good afternoon, honorable senators. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the Department of Education and all the kids in the 41 schools. My testimony is very, very simple, and I hope that you don't take it as an insult when I say that now it's time to show that you really think that Department of Education, the schools, the hospital, and public safety is the most important agencies here in the island. My statement is to say that I am asking all the senators to please dig down as deep as you can in your pockets and feel it in your heart that if you cut any amount of the budget that Department of Education is asking for, it's the kids that are hurting. No matter what it is, it's our kids. I want to remind you, and maybe I don't have to remind you, that our kids are our future leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, senators, honorable senators, there's other agencies that you can cut. We have always said that education, public health, and public safety is the most important agencies here in Guam. So I am asking you to put your mouth where your money's at, or whatever the saying is, and please, when you look at the budget here, think about our kids. They're not here to protect themselves. They're not here to speak out, but I am here. And there's a lot of teachers and other people and other agencies that don't have to speak out, okay, because they actually speak out in the public, and a lot of them, like me, I am not an educated person. I'm a hands-on person. But, I'm taking the time and cranking up the guts to speak up here, in front of everybody, because it's the right thing to do. So when you meet for this budget, think about what I'm saying, and think about when you say that public health, public safety, and the Department of Education is the most important thing here. And I again thank you for giving me the time to maybe say things that are not so favorable, but please think about the kids. Jesus Maasi, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, for your statement of there are some agencies we need to eliminate or reduce. We'll be looking at that. Okay, so rest assured, some may not be too happy. Now, I'd ask the board members to go ahead and excuse yourself now, because all I wanted to see was just the superintendent and his staff, so that they'll be the only one being asked questions. And they'll be the only one responding to the questions. Okay? Superintendent, do you have anybody else other than Tulling that's going to be with you on the forefront? I know Tulling is your real right hand, the money girl.
If I could ask the other deputies to
Yes,
come to
please.
the table. They were all sworn in already.
It's
so.
not a problem. Joe, move over front to the middle so it's balanced. You'll be balanced with John.
I can feel it.
Great, you have all 4 deputies now, right? Okay. Mr. Superintendent, please begin.
Let me, first of all, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. You can already tell that well, if you don't know, I can't tell, I'm a little bit under the weather, but I wanted to be here to make sure we were appropriately representing the department and defending our budget and answering any questions you might have. With me at the table, Deputy Superintendent Taling Taichano for Finance and Administrative Services, Deputy Superintendent to my right, Stacy Sahagan, Deputy for Assessment and Accountability, Deputy Superintendent Kelly Sukola, Educational Support and Community Learning, and then at the far left, Deputy Superintendent Joe Sanchez for Curriculum and Instruction. Hopefully, the fact that I'm under weather will cause this to go a little bit more quickly and directly so we can get to the Q&A. I did, in my testimony, I did attach the testimony that we submitted in February when we had an earlier informational briefing with our chairwoman, Talina Nelson, and the Education Committee. So that is there for your information. In addition, we had submitted responses, 2 questions that were asked at that time from that earlier hearing. Today, I don't need to reiterate it, but our chairman talked about the process by which we come up with our budget. And of course, we're on the asking side. We don't have we're not involved in the governor's budget. In fact, we know that the governor has not submitted her budget until a later date. But our process starts in October. Once the Guam Education Board disposes of the prior budget by setting our spending priorities, already we're automatically into the next cycle by issuing the call to all of the schools to begin the budgeting process for the coming year. Those schools then, as required by statute, go out and hold public hearings with their stakeholders. And from that, the schools and divisions compile their budget requests and submit it to the superintendent's office for review. And then upon that review, which normally is question and answers and verification, as well as correcting some of the new, the numbers, or eliminating redundancies, things like that, we basically hand that then over to the Guam Education Board, during which their time of review, they will hold a couple of work sessions to ask further questions, get further responses before they reach and pass a final budget, which they submit after a vote on a resolution. They submit to the legislature by our January 30th statutory deadline. Let me just note that what we submitted was the Guam Education budget, Department of Education budget, under separate cover. Mr. Chairman, under separate cover, you did receive from us the pass-through of the charter school budgets as well. Our budget request is for an amount of $344 million, which is a 56% increase over the appropriation level in 2019, and just slightly over what we requested last year, about 2.5% increase. I want to say that, I think the chairman mentioned it, that it's not that we don't come here unaware of the financial challenges that the government faces, as well as the decisions that both the legislature and the governor have to make in addressing our overall needs. So when we come here, we don't come here with the notion that there's enough money falling from the trees to fund everything we want. But we do come here from an approach of, let's see what we need, let's gather what we need. We're guided by the 14 points, which really is a clarification of our organic act responsibilities to provide an adequate education. And then based on that, we come to the legislature and we put it all on the table and say, these are the things that we need. We're coming into this this year after basically a year and a half of austerity measures. So we've come in since February 2018. We've been more in a cutting mode than we have been in trying to add anything new to the department. So as you recall, I mean, a lot of the initiatives we've done have really put a damper on some very exciting initiatives, such as the expansion of pre-kindergarten, that we had hoped to be able to provide. But it's also hit at some of our core responsibilities, such as textbooks and increments and reclassifications and the hiring of substitutes. We've made all sorts of adjustments to try to do our part and try to adjust ourselves to this austerity environment. And so since over the last 18 months, we've basically had to cut about $20 million. And we want to thank the legislature, especially our education chairwoman, our appropriations chair, the guidance. And for those of you who are able to get the property tax fix done, we know that it wasn't a unanimous vote, but it's important for us because we based our budget and we planned around that. And already we were in the original budget, we were already required to cut $5 million. Adding that on top of it was just going to make it that much harder. So we want to thank you for your support of that, and we look forward to the governor's signature. I want to say that we did listen to the Guam Community College's hearing earlier this morning, and I did want to say something similar, which is despite the challenges that we have, despite the funding environment, the 14 points mandates, and so forth, we all continue to work very hard. So as you recognize, we have our division heads and administrators, our school administrators in the back and in the balcony, as well as some of our staff as well. We work very hard to try to do as much as we can with what we have. If you look at that overall outcome of trying to get our students to complete their education successfully, our graduation rate is now up at 84.5%. About 5 years ago, it was under 70%. We're graduating about 2,000 students over the past couple of years. That's grown steadily from about 1,750, again, 5 or 6 years ago. Our dropout rate is now 2.5%, around 2.6%, which is half of what it was in 2012. So even as the resources become tight and as we go through the last couple of years of cuts, the focus is still there. We know what our job is, we know what our mission is, and I think as you heard earlier, from Dr. Mary Okada, when we talk about the partnerships that are in place, there are so many exciting things that are out there that we look forward to. I know she talked about early middle college, talked about how we can increase the opportunity for credentials, for industry credentials, or for college credit for many of our high school students. That's the work we continue to do and we're focused on, and that's the work that guides our middle schools and our elementary schools at the same time. So, we've had that discussion earlier with the Education Committee, so I'll wait for the questions and answers with regard to particular aspects of the budget. I know that the testimony is provided and you have the budget information as submitted. I did want to make a few final points before heading into the questions. First, I did want to clarify that our budget does include funding for reclassifications and salary increments for the coming year. We know that FY19 has been very difficult for employees government-wide with the freeze on increments and reclassifications. For us, the reclassifications is mostly our teachers who've gone and gotten their higher education and advanced education, gotten their degrees, improved their effectiveness in the profession, yet the reclassifications are not available this year. And then for all of our employees who are due an increment this year, we've had to remind them that there is a freeze government-wide on increments. At the same time that we know it's helping us address our financial issues, the effect on morale and is really, it can be felt, especially in DOE where we rely on our human capital so much to make up for the lack of other resources. So I want to just let you know that we put that in for the coming year's budget, and we do hope that when the budget is approved that we're able to move forward with our employees as well. Second, I know this will come up, so I want to address it earlier. We talk about utility costs, and I know that we've been trying to cut our utilities, and as we reduce consumption, the rates are still going up, so we're not making as much headway as we had hoped. We are working with GPA a little bit more closely on pilot initiatives to reduce demand or manage the demand side management side of the equation, and we're looking at alternative energy. So we talked about solar and how it's been stuck for the leased schools for a while. We did meet with Attorney General Levin Camacho. We have one final draft that we hope to submit, and we brought it to his attention. I wanted to put it on his radar as an important thing that needed to get either move forward or just reject it outright so that we can move on with our lives. But he's committed to expediting his review once that final, that latest draft is resubmitted. And that latest draft really is, we've gotten a lot of the business points done. It's just more compliance-related issues is what I understand. But we did raise to your attention that there are, other than the lease schools, which we are able to bypass your typical procurement, there are 35 other schools that are under DOE that are in the non-lease schools. That authority to procure solar power or enter into power purchase agreements was given to GSA to handle on our behalf. And several years ago, GSA communicated with us that they're not going to do anything with it any further. So it's made no progress, I would say, since 2014. We would like to urge you to consider maybe in some way, we know funding is important as well, but maybe the authority can be revisited and DOE be given some opportunity to move forward with the non-lease schools. So we want to make that a point. Third, you'll see a large chunk of our funding in about $20 million in capital funding to address deferred maintenance. And again, I think I said this last time, normally your capital improvement funding is financed over the life of your assets. So you're looking at 20 to 25-year funding that you pay on an annual debt service to address. But because we don't have the ability, to continue borrowing in this government, some of this deferred maintenance that we're trying to address, we're trying to pay as you go is what they call it, right? Which is you'll just pay the entire amount up front, which is why $20 million, gets put in on, year by year to try to see if we can address it that way. And we know it's very difficult to provide that kind of chunk of funding. But alternatively, we have been talking, I know we've spoken to members of the legislature as well as the governor about finding a dedicated source of funding that's just purely dedicated to facilities improvements, something that we can count on over time and that we can leverage for federal support or other types of financing and enable us to address our facilities. Fourth, we know we submitted in the prior legislature some revenue generating proposals. For instance, the PD warehouses that are available. I do want to let you know we are going to work with GITA on moving that forward, but I think we will end up needing a legislative authority on that and some other measures. So we were going to be resubmitting that for your consideration. I think the PD warehouse was the big one, but we wanted to kind of raise it with GITA first. And then fifth, we did talk about the budgets of the charter schools being submitted under separate cover. This has been a repeated issue, and I know there's been some discussion and commitment to trying to amend the public law and the public charter school law to try to address these recurring concerns. We'd like to be a part of that and see if we can actually take those measures this year and resolve it, especially on the submission of budgets, which both the charter schools and DOE pretty much agree on. If we can start there and then try to work on other areas, I think that would be great to try to address some of these longstanding issues. And then finally, I know there will be a question on where we are with high risk. So I do want to, we can answer any more detailed questions later, but I do want you to know that we do have last year we made an official request to have our status reconsidered. Over the past month, we've received what is now considered the final reconsideration evaluation plan from their standpoint, which is they're going to use this to evaluate our progress as we go through our own process of submitting information to them. So this reconsideration evaluation plan is going to be our framework for both charting and validating our progress and submitting it to USDOE for a final review. They are going to do some virtual review, but they are scheduled to come in at some point. They haven't defined the dates, but they do want to come back and do some on-site evaluation and validation before they complete that work. So we're still pushing as far, we're not very happy with the fact that it still looks like it's a longer time frame than we'd hope, but we are moving it slowly forward so that we can try to find some framework that's in writing with some deadlines and things that we can work through. And we want to, at this point, we need to have some time with our education chairwoman to brief her on the latest progress and information, our appropriations chair, a public auditor, a governor's office, and the congressman. What we are hoping to continue, as we have over the past couple of years, is a one Guam approach, that we're all are kind of going in the same direction. If there are any issues, concerns, questions, we can address that, and we should address that, prior to USDOE. But once we go to USD, begging that just asking that we all be briefed and on the same page so that we have one voice and one message. So with that, just kind of talking about the highlights of some of the issues that typically come up in our hearings, I just wanted to end there, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have about the overall budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. Before I move on, I'd like to recognize, and excuse me for not doing so earlier, Vice Speaker Ted Nelson's in our audience. Sir. And we also have former Congressman Robert Underwood, former president also of the UOG. We got the two young folks in our group. Let me see. Thank you, sir. I'd like to also recognize that also they've joined the panel was start from the far right. I think that's Senator Sabina Perez, and then we have Senator Amanda Shelton. We have Senator Kelly Mars Taitanu. Kelly Mars, I guess, will complete that. And on my far left would be Senator Jim Whalen. I'd ask the panel, does any of my colleagues want to ask questions, or would you prefer to wait until the principals speak, present? I have a few questions. Do you have any questions to my far right? I'll start with Senator Perez. Do you have anything you want to present to the superintendent? And then we'll work our way to my left.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here and presenting. I just want to go over some things where we left off last time with the roundtable. Can you explain, I guess, the increases from benefits? So I'm seeing there's an increase in benefits, about $20 million, under $20 million. There's also increases in equipment. I know we talked about that last, but I didn't know if we, about 10 times. There's a 10-fold increase in equipment costs. And there's one more thing. Yeah, so if you can, I guess, expound on those increases?
Let me start off, and if there's any further detail, I can turn to Deputy Tony Taichino. The benefits and equipment. So, on the benefits side, it's almost formula driven. It's just basically dealing with the number of personnel that you're budgeting for in the proposed budget. And of course, as you can see, there's a tremendous amount of personnel being requested as part of the budget. So the benefits are just, it's basically almost formulaic. We budget at the higher end for the benefits in case employees who are hired take on the full benefit package, and that budgeted number goes into that side. So basically, your benefits are a function of how many employees you've included in your request. So that, but it'd be your typical, insurance benefits and so forth. Your standard benefits for government employees.
Okay, so it increases with the pay too, right? The
right,
person's pay.
Right, with pay and the number of employees. So that's the function of that line. On the equipment side, what you'll see is in equipment. Someone can explain this to me why it is, but it's textbooks are included as part of equipment. So that's where you're getting that. So what happens in our budget request, and this has been a back and forth with the legislature about how much to input. We just requested the full amount of textbooks based on a textbook for every child, based on the backlog of adopted textbooks, since there is a backlog. So that's the full amount. I think that came out of a discussion in a prior, with prior representatives about, we were asked by the media, how much it would cost to actually get a textbook in everyone's hands, and this was the amount. And we were asked by an elected official why we didn't request it. So we said we want to make sure that we adequately reflected it, at least in our budget request. Typically, we get about $1.5 million for textbooks in our appropriation.
Okay. So I believe the first time we met, the textbooks was in another item, and I'm just surprised it was put together. But from what I recall, when we met last time, it was still a tenfold increase in equipment, and the textbooks was in another line item.
Yeah, I don't believe that was the case, but it might have. I'm not sure. It typically falls into the textbook. So that 28 million, 17 of that is going to be associated with the textbooks.
Okay.
Just so that's the clarification. If that was a misunderstanding.
Okay. And as far as so there's been a freeze on reclassification payments, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so the current request for reclassification, is that for cumulative amounts or other?
It does not include, so our understanding is that the freeze does not allow for retroactive pay, so it would take place in the new fiscal year from that point forward if it's funded.
Okay.
So we couldn't, so there is no retroactive payment for the current fiscal year.
Okay.
And same with increments.
Okay, what about the bonus rewards incentives program? Can you explain that?
Can you-
This one.
So that would be for merit bonuses in case, to reflect bonuses that folks would have gotten if we were allowed to pay it out.
So
So-
those merit bonuses reflect, the guidance that we've received is that, and as had been done prior to the prior payout of merit bonuses, is that we book those merit bonuses even though we don't have the funding. And so should there be money made available for merit bonuses, then we would be able to retroactively pay those amounts. So those are booked. When we looked at reclass and increments, those are, I think the way the law is written, it's not we're not booking any retroactive amounts. I think that's the clarification we received.
And this is for employees that perform exceptionally well.
Who they were supposed to achieve an outstanding in their evaluation.
Okay. Okay, and then going towards the indirect cost. I know Vice Speaker had asked about that in the last meeting. Can you explain those indirect costs?
So indirect costs is basically when you administer a federal grant, the federal grant will set aside funding at a particular indirect cost rate to account for the administrative support for those grants. So indirect costs, I think the question that we last received was the use of the indirect cost for travel, which is allowable, but the amounts that were being cited were not reflected in what we were looking at. So we've reviewed the indirect cost expenditures. Most of that right now is going to support some of the salaries of employees who are directly supporting the financial high-risk side of the shop. Those are positions that we've not used local funding for and are trying to at least shore up our high-risk efforts. So that's what the indirect cost is being used for predominantly.
Is that reflected in the budget summary that you have, or is that outside of what the budget summary has?
It's outside, though. This is on a federal side.
Okay, so the other thing is, the rebuild of Simon Sanchez High School. Do you see that? How is that going to fit into the budget request?
So that's a great question. Right now, the budget request, obviously starts October 1st once approved, and we're still in March. So right now we are in the process of trying to finalize the land survey services, which we hope to get done soon. And then after that, we're going to go out for the owner agent engineer work. And then hopefully the the A&E work will follow shortly thereafter. We're still going to be short funding for the A&E work. We think we have enough to kind of get through phase 1 and 2. Phase 3 will be a little bit more questionable. So I believe if we are already in the following fiscal year, typically we do have some flexibility on the use of those funds. If we're able to make up the gap with what's budgeted for the fiscal year, we'll do so. So our anticipated time frame, just barring any, so I guess the answer is the critical piece is the A&E work, which is kind of the third step. We're hoping to get that bid out and hopefully awarded sometime this summer. But of course, the funding is going to be important that we have that in order to move forward. So once we get to the first two, we'll know how much money is left in available funding. We'll know what the gap is, and we're either going to have to find it this current fiscal year, either within our own budget through supplemental funding, or bridge it over into the next fiscal year. So we're kind of working through that process right now. Typically, we're looking at maybe 8 to 10% of your total project cost would be what you're trying to use for that A&E work. So we're looking at maybe $5 million total that would help support the A&E work for Simon Sanchez. So there's a gap there. I'm not sure when we're going to bridge it, but it's.
So where is that reflected in the budget, the current budget request?
So so it's not reflected in the FY20 budget. So we were hoping to address that issue in FY19, and we've been trying to. That's the work we were trying to do with the front office, with the governor, to see if we can find funding to get us through FY19, and then FY20, the funding that's supposed to go to the phase 4 and after, which is the construction and so forth, that's supposed to come out of a separate set aside of funds that were supposed to fund the Simon Sanchez project from the beginning under the lease back. What we're trying to do is identify upfront funding that we can pay out directly for these pre-development phases, and then once we get to construction, be able to use that set aside of funds for that purpose. So we're looking for that $5-6 million that we're trying to fund right now to get us through the early stages until we hit construction and financing.
Okay.
But no, I thank you. I mean, it's part of that's a work in progress because we don't know yet what the gap is, and we're just getting through phase 1. By phase 2 and 3, that's where we're going to try to figure out what that gap is that remains, and by that time, get later into this fiscal year and working with the governor, we're hoping we can bridge that gap without having to wait for FY20. I'm sorry, ma'am. Does that answer?
Yes, thank you very
your
much.
question? Thank you.
I just want to go back to salary increments. Is the increase due to additional staff or increase in pay, or both?
It would be both.
And are they for teachers, or what positions are they for?
It's for all classified employees.
Classified. So are we looking at more administrative staff? I mean, percentage-wise, what is the bigger percentage going towards?
It would be our school-based staff.
Okay.
Mr. Superintendent, all the increments you're requesting is across the board for all
Right.
your employees, right? Okay.
Right. It's a standard
And the
obligation
reclassification.
for all
Okay.
employees.
Thank you. Do you have anything else, Senator Paris?
I'm sorry. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Shelton? Do you have
Thank
any
you.
questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for being here today, and to all of the teachers, principals, administrators, thank you for being here. I wanted to ask, going off of the questions on indirect costs, what is the amount in indirect cost that's collected by GDOE from federal funds?
800,000,
800. Okay.
more or less. I mean, every year we update those percentages with the feds.
Okay, thank you. And then you mentioned touched a little bit on facilities and improvements, and I'm seeing here that you have a little note here that says for capital improvement projects to address health and safety at 35 school sites. So I wanted to know if you have a specific plan for each of these 35 sites, and then if there are any other general plans for all schools?
So right now, we're talking about a largely deferred maintenance. So deferred maintenance is captured already within our maintenance management system. Each of the schools are responsible for updating and ensuring, as they work with our facilities folks, that the needs are either addressed or they are still outstanding. So we do have a database of every school and the work that's being requested to address health and safety needs at the schools. And each of the principals are responsible for ensuring that they get that to us, and then facilities and maintenance uses that database to start to allocate their resources.
Do you think that's something that you can share with the committee?
We can share, certainly we can share the work requests per school, for sure.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Senator Lee, do you have anything?
Sudus Masi, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much, Mr. Superintendent, and all of our stakeholders that are here today. I really just want to be able to, I know we have a lot of administrators and principals in the audience and other stakeholders, perhaps parents. So I just, I'll yield my time, and I'd like to hear from the members of our community who are here to testify as well. Sudus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator Rizal. Clint?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Superintendent Fernandez, in the budget narrative that you guys provided us with, it's basically justifying the budget based on how it addresses the 14 points to an adequate education. In the 14 points, I took a look at some of the largest figures, and one of the largest figures is point number 12 under healthful, safe, and sanitary learning environment. That makes up 106.7 million worth of the budget. I think it's the second largest category out of the 14 points. Under that, the rest of the breakdown shows what that 106 million goes towards. And some of it is for 240 administrative and clerical school support staff. Can you explain some of those positions and how they help with a healthful, safe, and sanitary learning environment?
So, are you talking about the office support at the school level?
In your budget narrative, it
Let
just
me
listed as
let me
240.
Can you just point me to the page? So that we can
Page
just-
17, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
just sorry. I just want
Page
to make sure. I'm
17.
looking at another chart. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you for that. So so basically, under those categories are and they're basically for your school support staff at every school. So every school has employees that are there to address any of the school needs that the administrators are going to need them to. They handle procurement of things that need to happen. They handle requests for facility repairs. They handle the appropriate funding of school activities. So they're there for the general coordination and support of the administrators at the school sites. And sorry, thank you for the reminder. Some of these positions are also based on the ratio set forth by the collective bargaining agreement with the Guam Federation of Teachers as well.
I see. In this, there's also a further breakdown. I'm trying to find where I was looking at it. It showed a further breakdown of the, here we go, the FTEs. So of the 724 school-based FTEs, same page 17, 219 are new positions. Can you explain what some of those new positions are?
Yeah, so the bulk of those positions are school aides. So, so we've had this ongoing conversation with regard to school aides that are hired through the special education grant that we have to support our one-to-one aid requirements for our students with disabilities. This is a tough one because we put it in our proposal because what we'd hope to do is be able to, instead of hire them as part-time employees, which is really intended to stretch out the grant funds, we know that as a part-time employee of the department, you're not, I mean, you're looking for your next job. There's not as much stability and opportunity as you'd like. Yet we're having them work with our most vulnerable students. So the idea was to see if we could hire more school aides for especially the one-to-one school aides under our local budget as a full-time employee. And so we're kind of working through that model, but that's the reason it's in there, and mostly because I think that issue's been raised here at the legislature. How do we support our kids, but can we get them from part-time to full-time status? And the issue there is funding.
So of the 219 new positions, the further breakdown shows 147 school aides, as you were saying, 19 clerks, and 50 clerk secretary types.
Correct.
Are those 50?
Yeah, those
type
particular
is
ones are
necessary?
largely driven by the collective bargaining agreement.
That's also
requirements.
collective bargaining
Those,
agreement?
the clerks and clerk secretary for the most part, yes. A lot of the administrative positions that are there.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, no questions?
If I could, just
Yes, sir.
real quick, they are in the collective bargaining agreement. We were without a union agreement for a long time. We signed an agreement with them in 2017, and then so for the past year and a half, the union has been a good partner in working through these more austere times and not really, pushing to enforce all aspects of the agreement. But that's because we're kind of working together to make sure we adjust to the financial realities. But we do put it in the request in good faith.
All right, thank you. Senator Moreland, do you have any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your report and all the information here. It's very helpful. Just have a couple of questions. I know on page 25, you mentioned on the conclusion, the additional funding you get from the different special funds. One mention was the limited gaming fund. Could you give me an idea on the funding that you received from that? If it's in here, I'm sorry, I missed it.
Sorry, I keep turning this off. It's about 600,000 or so. I'm sure you'll get the
Okay.
final amount.
That's fine. One other
But
question.
it's for sports facilities and equipment.
600,000?
Yes, and so we typically don't get it released all at once. It gets released in increments. Normally, it gets released in increments, not all at once. So what we've been trying to do is see if we can compile or accumulate enough of the funds to do major projects, especially gym renovations. Unfortunately, the challenge has been over the last year with regard to the budget issue. We had to redirect the funds that were available for that period of time. But what our hope is to be able to leverage those funds for major sports facility improvements, especially at our middle schools.
Okay, thank you. Just one last question also. For your vendors and paying all your vendors, could I get an idea of the balance, that there's an outstanding balance for our different vendors out there, just to give an idea?
So we're, normally at any point in time, we're going to be between $8 to $12 million. So we just call it $10 million in vendor payables at any given moment in time. And about, so right now we have about half of that amount is probably over 60 days due. So typically, our issue is getting the cash to pay the vendors. So we were pretty much, I thought, caught up in much in terms of the outstanding payables. When we got to January 2018, we had been struggling because of our previous cash shortages, mostly due to the TEF shortfalls. But given the last year and a half of trying to deal with lower revenues, the vendor payables have kind of grown back. I guess the dates, the 30, 60, 90 days that we track have grown. So we've got about half of that, $10 million beyond 60 days. So that's an issue that we have to work on with our vendors. But we always remind them that it's an issue of cash being available to pay them, especially during these tough years. Okay. Our largest vendors, I think we included them in the response to Senator Nelson, Vice Speaker Nelson. Our food services, our custodial contracts, our HVAC repair, those are some of the bigger contracts that we currently have in place.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Castro, do you have anything? Nothing? Senator Nelson, I know you're eager to hear the principals first, right? Okay. Mr. Superintendent, let me ask you just a few questions. I've got a note here. You claim 800,000 in indirect costs. Am I correct? You got about 800,000 in indirect costs? What is the current negotiated rate? Is it about 20%?
I think we just got a 9.5% approved rate for the, yeah, I think the latest is a 9.5%.
Oh, 9.5, okay.
Again, year by year it fluctuates.
All right. I'm looking at a different document. You said 800,000. I see 1.2. It fluctuate. So today's 800,000. Last year was 1.2. I mean.
Yes, every grant cycle we work through another approved indirect cost rate with DOI and USDOE, and as it gets approved, then we adjust how the grant's being spent. Okay. So if it goes over, sometimes I think we did deal with an 11% at one time, and now it's back down to 9.5%. It's really based on salaries that are paid through the grant.
Okay, I'll just remind you what I reminded Mr. Byrne down at DOA, that if you get any additional money and it's not appropriated, please advise your oversight chair so we can put a bill through and appropriate for you to use it. Non-appropriated funds, if it's not appropriated, you can't just use it because you got it. Please advise your oversight. I just give you advice on that.
I'm
okay?
happy to. Yeah, no, I'm happy to clarify what the requirement is.
Okay.
I think at this point, my understanding is that as federal funding that is subject to the discretion of the superintendent, subject to the grants and oversight of the department. If that's not the case, then that's something that needs to be clarified.
Understood. I'm
Okay.
just,
No,
I'm just giving you a heads up, John.
Okay.
You know, just let her know so she'll know what's going on.
Oh,
That's all
no,
I'm
no,
asking.
for-
Assessment and evaluation based on level of effort, resources, and achievement. If we apply that to the overall progress of GDOE, each year we hear about GDOE should be getting what GDOE should be getting but never receives. At the same time, we hear about progress in reducing dropout rates and student progress. Can you explain clearly how you can continue to make progress without additional revenues? And can you tell us how much more progress we've made with the additional funding?
So, wow, that's a very big question. I mean, it's like asking a teacher, you know, how much he or she would be able to do if he or she actually had all the resources that are requested. I think, you know, because part of it is focus, part of it is collaboration and with others, and we're working together as a team to try to meet our core mission. But we're doing it without, you know, we have seen progress. Like we've seen more technology, we've seen an alignment of standards, better discussion and collaboration amongst our teachers and administrators to try to move everything forward. So we do anticipate progress, but we do it with, you know, at the same time, you know, like you said, Simon Sanchez, they continue to be very good performers, and the teachers work hard to drive the students. But we also know that, you know, we don't know, I guess, what the possibilities are with the school that is actually not leaking and breaking and falling apart around them. So part of what we do is we go to the students and teachers and do this budget process, and we say, you know, what is it that can allow you to accelerate or to improve upon what you're doing? What we want our administrators to think about are things that you don't need to worry about. We don't want you to worry about facilities. We don't want you to worry about the issues. We want you to focus on doing what you are doing, which is dedicating yourselves to seeing our kids improve in their core content areas. So what I would say is that with the resources available, not even the full amount, even portions of that amount, well, we use every one of those to try to address what the needs that are being brought to us by our stakeholders, and that's what we'll continue to do. So I guess the best way I can say it from the last 6 to 18 months, we went to our PTOs and we explained budget cuts, and they said, you know what, we'll do what we always do and we'll pitch in and we'll work together, but you know, how long are we going to have to do this? I think that's a general sentiment. Everyone's doing what we can do, especially cutting $20 million from the last year. We don't want to see it slide any further. We need to continue to have momentum around the progress we're making.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. I don't expect you to slide any further. The 20 million, I believe, shouldn't have happened. Okay, I understand that federal funds cannot be used to provide for regular programs or CIPs. but are designed to improve practice and assist in raising the achievement rates of students. To this end, there are a number of programs which are funded to make significant progress in student achievement. Can you tell the committee which programs are helping GDOE make significant progress in achievement and which ones are not helping as much? It's a loaded question, right? I got 3 loaded questions for you, John. And
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean,
if you can answer it as much as possible, otherwise you can write to us and explain more in detail.
I guess, let me tell you where we are in the process. We're in the 3rd year of our 3-year grant cycle with consolidated grant. And our discussions with USDOE are exactly around this point, is that as we head into the 3rd year, what data are you showing that is indicating progress? What data is not showing us much progress? And then where do we go from here? How do we best utilize the federal funds to further supplement and increase the progress in Guam? So we've done a lot of retooling in it, and it's not an easy thing. So for instance, let me just give an example. We have the Aspire program for after-school support. The intent of the program is to assist students in need of additional time, additional tutoring, and to that extent, we do. That's the driving force. Some may view it as also, it's nice to have some place for our kids to be safe and get extra instruction while we are working, and we want to get them later. So, but our priority, we tried to shift to focus in on more of the at-risk kids. So that's the design we have. Unfortunately, sometimes we see that our at-risk kids have difficulties accessing these programs, and those are the kinds of things that we're looking at, because if you're running an after-school program for at-risk kids, but they're unable to benefit because they have transportation issues, can't get that ride home after school and so forth. Those are the discussions we're having in terms of how do we not take the data and then improve how we're operating that program and so forth. We do we're doing Escuela Empuengi, we're doing credit recovery through that. So we think credit recovery works. It needs improvements. We'd like to see it expand. But as it expands, we're looking at things like Escuela Empuengi. Like if we have a credit recovery opportunity, then do we need credit recovery and Escuela Empuengi and summer school? What's the best way to invest those dollars that are really meant to assist, especially our high school students who are maybe trying to catch up with their credits and so forth. So I don't know if Joe has any other good examples, but I guess the answer is, we're working under the guidelines and priorities of USDOE. We have implemented programs that you're well aware of: summer school, night school, credit recovery, after school for the elementaries. A lot of our investment, actually, if you talk to teachers, is going into professional development for teachers. Our major, theory of change is that when you have a district that doesn't have a textbook for every kid, doesn't have great facilities for every school, that what you're really relying on is your human capital, your teachers, to carry this out. And so over the past 3 or 4 years, I know it's definitely under Mr. Sanchez's push and design, has been trying to enable more opportunities for professional development, for professional collaboration, for work, for teachers to work with each other and with teachers in other schools in different parts of the island to develop lesson plans, to focus on standards, and to ensure that every student in every school across the island has a good quality, high quality education, and that's done through the teamwork, the guidance, the professional development that the consolidated grant provides. And also technology. Technology is really heavily funded by our consolidated grant. So laptops, tablets, laptop carts, interactive whiteboards, and so forth.
Could you tell me, please, what is the total amount of federal funds you get? Was the total amount minus private schools and everybody else outside of DOE? What's the total amount?
So I would say, I'll give you the total amount and we can net out the private, but for consolidated, we get it updated every year, but it's been around 30 million for the past couple of years. We get about 14 for SPED, and then we get an additional, is it 8 for Head Start? So all in all, you're talking about $50 million, and then there may be discretionary grants that here and there. So we do have, I think, a Striving Readers grant that you can apply for. But typically it's around $50 million to cover your Head Start. This is not talking about food. There's food's to the side, so
That's correct.
Head Start, SPED, and consolidated grant.
So you get 52,
50 to 60 in any 1 year would be.
and that's not counted on the budget request. I mean, it's not.
No, that's
doesn't
federal.
show.
That's on a federal fund. Separate.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's clear. Out of the 343 you're asking for, you get 52 on top of that, so you're basically going to get 400 million if you get your total. Correct?
If we get the total, for
Simple
sure.
math, right, Tali?
For sure. Yes. I mean, if you're adding to the total.
Okay. Next question, in terms of college attendance, it's been continuing issues for our students at DOE and by the legislature and by post-secondary education leaders. What is DOE doing to coordinate with GC and UOG to respond to this matter of college attendance? Private school attendance at our local institution continues to increase, but public school attendance remains flat or has even gone down. What is DOE doing? You know, did you guys do a college preparation? Where are we at? What are the numbers? Are you tracking our students?
Yeah, I would. So
That's what I would like to know.
We have. I would say that with the initiation of a project to implement our longitudinal data system that requires funding. It's one of the funding requests in the budget, but it's also something that we're looking for federal funds. There used to be federal funding for it that went away. And Dr. Zenia Natividad from our research planning and evaluation is working with her counterparts at UOG and GCC to try to put the basic components in place, and with the funding to build that data system. I think I would like to say over the with all the systems we have in place right now, there's a lot of data. It's just connecting the institutions and tracking. So I think I know Dr. Hata was mentioning it. It's still a work in progress. Over the last, I would say maybe 2 years, I think there's been increasing momentum in the partnerships between GCC, UOG, and DOE. I would say especially with GCC. People say, where did that vocational high school go? And we say, well, it didn't go anywhere. It's embedded in all of our schools, and we just need to think about it that way, that we have built-in CTE programs in every one of our high schools in 12 different industry areas. And so I think she was going through the numbers. I think she was mentioning over the past 5 years about 900 some students got certificates of mastery, which enables them to get college credit at GCC. And the work that I've been doing with her has really been to try to expand access to more students, because they're still limited in capacity. Expand access for more students. Introduce more opportunities to get industry credentials before you graduate with your diploma. Introduce more opportunities to gain college credit before you graduate. So we're working on how to strengthen and expand our CTE offerings. I know our high schools, several whom are in the room, got training on career academies, which is another concept for us to really focus in on career and technical education, and are looking at implementing different forms and formats of career academies in conjunction with GCC. And then this whole discussion about early middle college, Dr. Okada and I are really trying to push to see if we can do that. The way it operates in a couple of different models, but I went out to Waipahu High School, which is where she had visited and had recommended, and it was really incredible what they're doing in the high school setting, which is they've got career academies, they've got advisory councils with the business community. They've got, we rely so much on GCC faculty, but they're relying on their high school faculty, and through professional development, through externships with businesses, these high school teachers are the ones who are able to now grant certification and credentials to their students. So that happens during the day after school. The kids who want to participate are now eligible to participate in what they're calling early college, which is where college faculty come and teach college level courses, and they're able to gain that credit starting from their freshman years. So, and I heard that discussion earlier this morning. That's something that is hot, and we want to see move forward. A lot of it is just design and resources. We want to do something that we don't mind piloting, but we want to see if we can pilot and sustain that type of investment. With UOG, I think the latest conversation is really we have a dual credit relationship, but to expand it. So we recently were approached by a family who said, my kid wants to take UOG, but they want to, go to course at UOG, but they want to do it in biology. how do we account for that in the, with the high school credit, and how is that? And so there are different things that we consider beyond just basic reading and math, right? English and math. That's what we are currently set up for. Now we've got people pushing the envelope to try to do more. If you take a college level course, whether it's biology, some other type of math or science, can we recognize it in high school so you get credit for it, and that advances your opportunity to get college credit while you're making progress with your diploma. So those things are our efforts that were currently underway.
All right, thank you. You've requested for $1,000 in drug testing, am I correct?
Correct.
Darling?
That's when we mandate. That's when we're through the course of an investigation.
Which is less than, it's $1,000 less than last year, and you're requesting 725 vacant and new positions? Something missing here? Work the numbers, Tulling, and then get back to us, please.
Yeah, well, the employees that are applicants cover their costs.
The applicants do?
The dollars we're requesting is when we're the ones, through the course of an investigation.
Okay.
If we request an employee to go get a drug test, we cover that cost.
Okay, the random testing is what you're referring to, right?
Correct, right.
Okay. The other one is now, we talked about solar power. You asked last year, 13 million. You added over almost $2 million more.
Yeah.
If you went solar, or if you're working something with GPA, why would you ask for more money for power? Is there something that maybe we don't know, that the power's going up and the people want me to know this so we can, touch base with GPA and says, what are you doing?
I mean, our rates are based on utilization plus any rate increases that are already scheduled to be in place. We didn't factor in the fact that we might get solar. We certainly would like to get solar implemented. That's going to take time, but it's not done yet. So we didn't factor in the potential savings for the GPA pilot projects that we're doing at Southern, at Carbolito, and at GW. So we didn't factor those in because those are just starting, and we're not, we haven't yet gotten to the point where we can show that we're capturing those costs.
Okay.
But hopefully in the future, when we demonstrate this, we'll start to see that, the potential of expanding those programs.
Now you did ask, and you did state earlier that if you could get the authority to do an RFI or an RFP for solar, right? Renewable energy. That's great to hear, because for 2 years I've been asking that, and I haven't got a response from GPA other than we got something coming, and that's all. It's coming. It's like the typhoon, it's coming. When it comes, it comes, and if it don't, it don't. And you are still trying to figure out how to pay $12 million in power. But I honestly believe you could reduce that amount, and your savings you keep and you fix your schools. Correct. Or provide for books or whatever you may need. You determine that with your board. But I have only one question to ask you, and yes or no, are you aware that your vice principals and principals are not required to be certified teachers once they reach the position of vice principal and principals? Are you aware of that?
Are you aware of that?
Just say yes, because it's in the law.
I'm listening to the back.
The reason why I'm concerned...
They normally hold their certification, but yes.
Well, the only reason why I ask that, because there's quite a few vice principals and principals that are not pursuing to maintain their certification. And if you remember correctly, about 1.5 years ago, we brought this issue about one of the high schools where they had 5 teachers didn't show up. You have 4 vice principals and 1 principal, and not one of them stepped in, but you kept all 5, not you, but they kept all 5 classes in I think the gym or the cafeteria. And that's not an acceptable way to do business. I understand that, you've got to manage the school, but I'm just very concerned. I think I've stalled enough time to have the principals now. Are they all here? Superintendent, can you just take a look? Are all at least, if we can at least have maybe the elementary first, if they're all here, or high or middle, whichever ones are here.
So if I could clarify, and I'll allow you to, take, and I don't know if you're going to dismiss this, but what I did is I did extend the invitation to them. So I don't know if it's required that they all come before you, and we've communicated them that you invited them. So however you want to run the hearing now, you let us know.
Yeah. Well,
we didn't schedule or ask them to organize themselves in any particular way. It's only a matter if they're willing to or want to testify. So.
Okay. Well, the request is made by the oversight chair that we have the principals here, and I extended it out for them, and
we extended it as well.
Okay. So it's a matter of just, we'll take maybe a 2-minute. You determine which one is the group that's here the most, and we'll have them come forward. And I just want to give you a fair warning, principals. It's not about you turning against the superintendent or turning against anybody. We just want to ask the question where you at, where you want to go, and how we can help you. Because at the end of the day, we're seeing a lump sum. Is how DOE's been getting their budget, lump sum. And we're just concerned more of that. Is the money reaching the schools? Not for you to turn against superintendent, because he's doing the best he can. But we're concerned is that when we visit the schools, when I did this 2 years ago, and now Senator Nelson's doing it, we're finding there's some shortfall. And maybe it's not getting to the superintendent, or it's getting to some of us, but we just want to hear it. And it's nothing against superintendent or the board. So please don't be jumping up in arms, because it's not going to do you no good. At the end of the day, I will reach out to Senator Nelson. We will reach out to you, the superintendent, and come to terms of what the budget should be or what it could be. And we are looking at the Appropriation Committee and the Office of Finance. It is looking at putting back and funding the increments and stuff like that. But there's going to be some cuts somewhere. And we're going to come to terms with that, Mr. Superintendent, and with the Oversight Chair, where we can do it. Because I honestly believe that most of, if not all, the employees are doing the best they can. And it's up to the management to determine if they meet satisfactory to get their increment or reclass or whatever. And I'll leave it to management to decide, not for the legislature, because that's not our role. Our role is to find the funding and help you out.
So if I could clarify then for my administrators as well as for you, just so we're not clear. So in the past, I know this has come up as a request for principals and other people from the schools to testify, and I don't think that's an issue. I think when it comes to representation for the agency, I think almost all agencies are typically represented by their director. So for instance, I saw this morning that Dr. Okada, and I asked her whether her deans were invited to testify, and she said no. So I assume this is something unique to DOE, or maybe that's something that will be replicated for other agencies. So what I did, though, in courtesy to you, I extended the invitation to the principals, although they have already gone through this cycle with us and the board in putting forth the legislation. So having said that, what I will do is remove ourselves from the panel, and any of the principals who might want to come and join the table are free to do so. I appreciate that.
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank everyone at DOE for their outstanding hard work and their continued commitment to supporting our children. The reason why I requested first the administrators to present their budget, Mr. Superintendent, is because I felt that our legislature needs to hear it and understand the struggles that are in our schools. And not everyone can go and visit the schools at the time that we need them to before the budget. And so our senators can understand the gravity that is affecting GDOE, and to ensure that we get the best budget possible, and we also empower our principals to take the lead in their schools to present this budget before us, so that we understand some of the sacrifices that they are making or some of the challenges that they are facing. I felt that it is a very appropriate forum for them to explain some of the challenges that they have, and to also perhaps present their budget that they see for the fiscal year. Of course, it is something very new. You're absolutely right. I don't know what the Oversight Chair for Higher Learning, how they will approach it, but GDOE is a very fundamental and very significant part of our budget. Everyone says it takes the lion's share, but it has so much more than that. This involves our children. This involves the next generation of leaders. This involves our community. And so to understand the gravity, we also need to hear it from those that are at the front line in our schools. And so I thank you also for being cooperative with us in this endeavor, and extending the invitation, letting the principals to come. So I'd like to thank the Oversight Chair also as well. So if there are principals that would like to come forward and give testimony, we need to hear some of the challenges that they face during the school, especially because this is a completely new legislature just about. So we have a lot of new senators, and I myself am new in this committee, and so I feel that this is only due diligence and proper process to actually hear the voice of our principals and administrators that guide our children in that front. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And just in closing, I won't say anything further. Like I said, we extend the invitation. We are another government agency, and I know that the principals have done their role in presenting to the superintendent and the board, and you're free to invite them for sure to testify. So I didn't give them instructions or organize them in any way. So I appreciate if you just allow them to invite them and not have me organize their presentation. So that's all I meant. So
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. You know, I have one person that also signed up. That's Mr. Gary Cooper. Did you want to speak on behalf of Benavente Middle School, or, and then we'll wait then? I'm not even too sure. I know I see a lot of principals here, but I'm trying to figure out which level they're at. Maybe Joe, you can identify. We'll take a 2-minute, and then you can just gather the majority of them that are here. It should be brief. It shouldn't be too long. Well, as a matter of fact, Joe, I'll give you 5 minutes. Just identify whichever the most are. We'll have them seated. Then we'll swear them in, and then we'll just go through the process. Okay? Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll take a 5-minute break for grouping. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, principals, staff, if we can calm down a little bit. I know I see a lot of you are principals for middle school more, like Robert. So if we can get the middle school principals to please come forward. I highly encourage, Robert, come on up. We'll start with you, Robert, the middle schools, and then we'll get to the elementary. Yes. Okay, and there's only what? There's only, you're a principal also, right? No, you're with Gary, PTO. Oh, good, you're right next to the Benevente rep, principal. Okay, we only got, okay, if you can, yeah, yes, please. Thank you. Yes, please. We will start with the PTO reps first, and then we'll work to your left, my right. Okay, and if you can please just state your name, the school you represent, and don't go beyond 5, Gary, okay? I know you only need 2 minutes, Gary. I know you. Thank you, Gary.
Hafaday Senators and Hafaday Guam. My name is Gary Cooper. I'm with the VSA BMS PTO. And I'd like to share a couple of situations that I've encountered over the 3 years that I've been involved with the PTO. My first encounter was I went to one of my granddaughter's performances at a PTO meeting. And while I was sitting in the cafeteria, I was looking around and I noticed an outlet that didn't have a cover. And so after the meeting, I went up to the vice principal and I was rather upset. I said, not only will a kid get hurt, they could die. Get hurt, they could die. So I said, I think I'm going to call the fire department and have them come take a look at this situation. They informed me that they had reported this outlet being broken 2 weeks ago. So I told them, if you allow me to change the cover, I won't say anything. So I came back. I changed the cover, and then as I was looking around the rest of the cafeteria, I noticed some more covers that were missing or broke. So I went back to the hardware store, I came back, and I changed them. And then after that, the vice principal asked me if I knew how to change a doorknob. I said I would be more than willing to if they had it. She mentioned she didn't have it. They were waiting for the doorknob. But if I could take a look at it anyway. So when we went to the classroom, the first thing I heard was Papa. I looked over, my granddaughter was in the classroom. I told the vice principal, wait there, I'm going to the hardware store and get it, because I don't want my granddaughter in this situation. So.
Now, Gary, before you move on, we're not talking about the elementary school, right? We're talking about
this is Maria Joa Elementary School.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that Mr. Cooper has been involved with Maria Joa, now with Benevente, and he's what you call your handyman. He's done a lot of constructions and a bunch of work, and I thank you.
My only saving grace is that my kids after BMS will go to JFK, so I'm okay. If they had to go to Simon Sanchez, I think I would move.
All right, please continue, Mr. Cooper.
So first of all, I'd like to thank, well, I'll get to that. Okay, so that was the first situation where I had to change a couple of doorknobs and change outlets. And then somebody mentioned to me that one of the students was attacked by a dog in the playground. So as I went out to the playground, I looked around the campus. The fencing was missing in places and torn up where the dogs can easily get in. We made several attempts to address that. We tried to get the mayor to get rid of the dogs, but that's still a current situation. Even at BMS, a lot of the fence line is missing, so there's dogs that roam the campus. So not only that are they a danger, but they roam the campus and they drop things all over the place, and then our students have to sit in those areas, so it's not very, very safe. I've also had a situation where there was a lockdown at a school. I was working on campus, And then I get a phone call from one of the teachers telling me that the school was on lockdown. So I went to her classroom. We waited after the lockdown was finished. I went back out because I had noticed it was a domestic dispute that had come into the classroom. Now, there are no intercoms, no public announcement system, so the intruders came on campus. The school called the police. The police officer actually had to draw his gun, his weapon, on the student in the front courtyard. All this time, there were students hanging out under the awning waiting for the bus. So had that situation gotten out of hand, our students might have been in danger. Well, they were definitely in danger having to witness that. So then one of my older granddaughters graduated. She moved over to Benavente. And then all this time she kept asking, well, how come I'm not coming over to help her at her school? Along with Mr. Egrabai, who visited Maria Ulloa a lot as a prior principal. He convinced me to go over there, so we formed the PTO over there again. Due to his encouragement and support, the PTO is highly motivated to help the students, the staff, and admin. One of the things that we're trying to instill in our students is if you can have pride in your school, they'll be better citizens and they'll have more pride in the village and in the island. So one of the things I feel we don't do enough of is citizenship in school. I read all these articles how parents need to get involved, and it starts with them. But if I was a principal or as a parent, if one of those kids came to my house and acted that way or did damage to my house, I would take action. So I don't believe that we need to count on the parents. If the parents aren't going to do anything, the principals and the DOE headquarters should do something. We can't just let that happen. When I went over to BMS, there was a lot of situations with the campus that were really falling apart. There was balusters missing on the stairwells. The kids could easily have fallen through and fallen all the way to the ground. There was a lot of damage to the campus. The louvers were missing, so students were actually walking out onto the platforms. So with DOE maintenance and a lot of other help from other places, we're able to tackle some of those situations. One of the biggest problems we have at VSA BMS is that there are no covered walkways. The 6th grade wing and the 8th grade wing are detached from the main campus. So whenever it's a bad weather, our students have to walk 40 to 50 yards through the pouring rain to get to the lunchroom or the admin building or to some of the classes in the main building. That's totally unacceptable. I've talked to several other administrators in some of the other schools, and we've noticed that there's been an increase in fights this year. I've talked to some of the students. They don't actually feel safe coming to the campus. Mr. Egrabai is out there constantly roaming the campus. The staff there is outstanding. I always see them addressing these students when they're acting up. But with a lack of admin or a lack of aides, these students feel more emboldened to do a little mischief. And a little bit of mischief might be start off innocent, but then it escalates to fights or vandalism. I was on campus when I witnessed Mr. Egrabai holding 2 lockdown drills. And it's amazing to me that we can do anything, again, with no communication. If they're counting on radio for the aides, I don't understand how our teachers are informed in a timely manner to lock their classrooms. You could have anybody walking through the campus, and it would take 10 minutes before the whole school is locked down. I just don't see that. We've acquired some speakers. We're going to try to put them out and try to fix that. When my daughter moved over to VSA BMS, I went to the parent-teacher orientation, and the teacher told me that the kids normally have 7 courses, but they only have enough books for 3 courses. So I asked what they do for the 4 courses. They say they use a lot of the internet, they do some research. They asked if the PTO can get some papers, get them a copier, to try to help out with that situation. The campus also has a problem with the condemned building. Although the students aren't supposed to be in there, I see them in there all the time, and that's a real safety hazard. The aides, again, they've allocated 1 aide to the front gate to monitor for intruders, and that takes away 1 position through the campus. We're also trying to aircon the gym. It's extremely hot. Again, because of Mr. Agubai, the PTO is extremely motivated. And I bring these situations to you hoping that it's in the DOE budget. But if it's not going to be in the budget, as you have problems with other governmental agencies trying to allocate those funds, I can imagine DOE has the same problem. So these issues might not take precedence, but they are truly clear and present dangers to our students.
Ma'am.
Hi, my name is Leah Balansai. I am PTO treasurer for Maria Jo Elementary School, but I'm also sitting here as a parent and as a school counselor. So I have witnessed these different incidents that he has shared on the PTO side, right, of what our school needs. But I also wanted to share as a school counselor that in the elementary level, I wanted to comment that I'm grateful that we had added a district psychologist, a specialist on the Section 504, because that does help us in the elementary level. We do not have different programs in place for anger management. We do get guidance and help from student support services to try to do different things like mindfulness, because in the elementary level, we do have students that are not identified, that are high risk. So with these specialists supporting us, it supports our high risk kids, and it does raise student achievement, because it is difficult in the elementary level when we do not have anger management and rooms to support our students with emotional disabilities. So these are students who get angry quickly and are destructive. They hurt themselves, they hurt others. So we could only do so much. So hearing that the budget also talks about for school aides or one-to-one aides, we do have students that are identified that do not have one-to-one aides. We have students that have one-to-one aides that are not there, so we do tap on our school aides. So at the elementary level, it's like one school aide to 150 students. So I've been out there in the playground when I don't have paperwork to do to help out, and it's a lot. It's a lot when you have this one school aide with these many kids and other unidentified students with possibly ADHD that she has to hold on her, 2 on her hands, and you have the other. So everybody does work as a team. So I did want to comment. I hope you do consider and think about the budget.
And if you could put a part of the budget,
Press the mic.
if you could add into the budget a small stipend for the PTOs so that they can do some creative work. Again, there's so many things that we're trying to accomplish and so many things that we have accomplished.
That's a good statement, Gary. We'll just redirect the money from the board and give it to the PTOs. Maybe that's our work. I'm just kidding. The board members probably look at me like, what are you talking about? But we'll proceed with your principal. And is Dexter here also? No, I think he's up. Because I remember he used to do the Beneventi, and he had the cameras and everything, right? Is the camera still there, or is it gone? Did he take it with him down to Santa Rita? No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, Sir.
Thank you, Senator San Agustin. To answer your question regarding the cameras, if I recall correctly, a lot of those cameras were initially purchased through efforts of the PTO and the school administration at the time.
Can you state your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. My name is Patrick Agubai. I'm the principal of Beneventi Middle School, and I'm here supporting my PTO. All right, so as I was saying, the cameras were purchased through a collaborative effort with the school administration and the then PTO. However, a lot of those cameras are now not functioning optimally and are in need of repair, but we lack the funds to repair them or replace them with newer cameras. We don't have sufficient surveillance throughout the school, so one of the things that we've included in our budget requests is additional surveillance equipment so that we can monitor our campus, make sure that we safeguard our assets and, of course, our students.
I'm going to ask that each principal just state what your overall budget is, so as you say what you included it, just give us a, even though we can look at this big pack to find your budget, but if you could just state it, you'd help most of my colleagues. Thank you.
I'd like to say, if I may, we appreciate the efforts of our parents and especially our PTO for coming alongside the school to support our efforts to educate our children. But the truth is, we don't have enough resources to accomplish what we expect. For example, in a campus as old as mine, with the issues that Mr. Cooper has mentioned, issues that threaten the safety of our students and our faculty and staff, we do the best with the limited resources that we have, but we ask the support of the elected officials and the powers that be to please assist us by providing or fully funding some of those things that we're requesting for, so that we can stay focused on our primary mission, which is to educate our students.
What is the overall budget request for your school?
For my school, it's almost 9 million, but that's not to include some of the bigger priorities that we've asked for in previous budgets. For example, the capital improvement, to include the demolition of the old annex, which Mr. Cooper refers to include the construction of the canopies leading to the fast track and annex classrooms, as well as to properly air condition the gym. Those things have been funded under a division, the Facilities and Maintenance Division, and I believe, and then also for some of our other initiatives, for example, having one-to-one devices for students so that we can use 21st century technology tools to better prepare our students for college and the workforce. We've included those requests, but those are funded under FSAAS. But those are also big ticket items that we've asked for at our particular school. That was the request of my stakeholders. And so I'm asking all of you here if you can please support us by funding those priorities.
All right, I got one simple question. And this is for all the principals, because you do have a mayor's rep. And every time there's a ship or a squadron from Anderson, everybody else comes on island, they offer a lot of projects. And I know that the issue at Benavente Middle School, that abandoned building, is not just last year. That's at least maybe if not 10 years old. And I'm just surprised that Public Works, you might want to take a look at it and just work that with your superintendent, get Public Works to get involved, and let's see how we can get somebody else to get in there and just get rid of that building. That building should have been gone a long time.
Senator, if I could address that, I've been in constant contact with Red Horse Squadron, the CBs, the liaison. They're feeling like they're having to do the brunt, a lot of menial labor, painting, cleaning, and they're pushing back on that now.
Of course, they want to do major projects. They don't want these small projects, but thank you. Ma'am, Senator Nelson.
For the maintenance of your school, how much do you spend on maintenance? Specifically, how much do you need and how much are you given?
Are you referring to the upkeep of our facility?
Yes.
That's something that our department at the district level handles primarily, but at the school level, we are allotted our Salapi Principat, as you know, and I've requested to use the bulk of that money to buy things like paint and supplies so that we can try to maintain what we can, but the facility is very old and in dire need of repair. It's been that way for many years. Without proper maintenance, things break down. And the things that are breaking down are very expensive. For example, air conditioning units, or if we needed to, for example, retrofit the school to make it up to code, or to modernize it, to make it more efficient for, let's say, career labs or technology labs. All that kind of stuff takes a lot of planning and funding that's not available presently to address those needs.
Okay. How many assistant principals do you have?
I have 3 on budget.
Okay. And how many do you need?
I need all 3.
Okay. Has any of your assistant principals been used to go cover down in other schools?
From time to time, we share resources amongst our neighboring schools. Say, for example, the school does not have an assistant principal, and the principal's out sick and they need coverage for, let's say, an IEP. We pitch in and we help one another.
And what is your teacher-to-student ratio?
Teacher-to-student ratio is 1 to 28. If we divide it up amongst our existing, the teachers on our staffing pattern, each homeroom is about less than 1 to 20. Okay. But be mindful too, when they go to their different classes, the max enrollment per class is 28.
So you have 1 to 28, you don't exceed 1 to 28?
Correct.
Okay.
We've allocated our staffing such that the teachers will not be overloaded.
Okay. And what is your biggest challenge in your school?
Aside from funding?
Yes, aside from funding.
And facilities? I think one of the challenges that we're currently experiencing.
Let's talk about curriculum and academia.
Yes,
perhaps.
so we're addressing the curriculum aspect through professional development and training, providing that type of support in-house through the different learning opportunities that we create for our teachers. For example, PDs during our faculty meetings, or of course the professional development opportunities that are offered by the district. So we, as school leaders, myself, my admin team, we make sure that we monitor the curriculum and try to provide all the supports that we can provide to our teachers so that they can carry out their jobs effectively. But when we are short of resources, or even basic things like tables and chairs, I know that in our budget, I've asked for brand new tables and chairs for all our classes, and that seems like it's a lot, but if we have not gotten new equipment over a decade, then it stands to reason that those items would break down over time. So we've been asking for a lot of collateral equipment, basic things like, I don't want to say a blackboard anymore. We don't use those. So now more modern tools such as interactive whiteboards and other technology that we can use to make the teaching and learning process more efficient. All of that requires funding, and as we all know, funding is limited. But if we can make the education of our children a priority, I think that would be a great investment, not just for my community, but for our island as a whole.
Okay. You don't have to answer this now, but could you just give us the costs for the upgrade and the equipment that you asked for, as far as the chairs and the tables as well? Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Principal. Thank you for everything.
One of my colleagues asked, maybe to set the tone, but I honestly believe that most of you now have heard what this principal has stated. Please, when you state your name and your school, tell us your budget and your shortfalls, or I'm not even going to use the word shortfall. What are some of the, difficult challenges you have? Robert always has challenges, but I'm worried about the other principals. Okay? Thank you. We'll move on. Yes.
All right. Afide, Michael Meno, principal of Inwan Middle School. Our budget proposal for this next fiscal year is $4.8 million. It's a modest amount compared to the bigger schools, but that amount that we are requesting for will cover the operational costs to pay the teachers, the utilities, and we've asked for additional funds to buy 100 desks. So we're looking at trying to address our school issues strategically. What we wanted to address first was the curriculum, the quality of instruction. So Inwan Middle School has had a turnover rate of up to 18 teachers every year. It's hard to recruit and retain teachers in our school because we are geographically separated from the economy, and it's a disadvantage for a lot of people to come to Inwan Middle School. It has impacted the families as well. We used to have an enrollment of 640. We're now down to 498. So that's a challenge that the superintendent discussed with me. How do we convince the community to send their kids to Inwan Middle School? So we did an action research with my past assistant principals. We looked at the risk factors. So the national risk factor for kids dropping out from Southern High, as an example, as early as 9th and 10th grade, is because of their experience in middle school. When we looked at the 4 elementary schools that feed into us, as early as 4th grade up to 8th grade, we saw in our action research that the biggest risk factor is that disengagement. Because Inwan Middle School is a small school, we have to maximize. We have to do our part and try to save money. So our school has maximized over the years since the past principals. So our team sizes are not as big as the other schools. And because we did that, we don't offer the same curriculum options as bigger schools. Yes, so by board policy, we do offer all of the required options, but if we want kids to explore other career fields, other college preparatory electives, that's gonna require us to get more teachers. So I did request for 4 additional teachers. One will be our agricultural science, and we want to leverage the resources we have. We've worked with the endowment, and we were able to receive $20,000 from NRG to help us start the programs. And through Deputy of CNI's support, all of the training that we've been receiving through STEM and robotics, we were able to maximize the training that the teachers have. What I need to do now is offer those curriculum courses. So I do have a certified music teacher who's teaching science. I have a certified science teacher who's teaching general science. I want to move them into those positions, and if the proposed budget gets approved, that might be an opportunity for the students of Inwan Middle School. We've also been trained in creating pocket academies. So this is where we can take our existing courses and create pockets of career academies where we can set up personal learning plans with the students. And we're very fortunate because with the new systems that DOE has, we can create these career portfolios as early as middle school, and we can vertically align it with Southern High School's program, like the GCC programs, the ROTC programs. We can take all of the courses we have now and realign it to create those pockets of career opportunities. And that will be my shortfall that I present today is the biggest part of our budget request will be for those positions. And we're only looking at 4 teachers. If you guys are happy with us, 8 teachers.
Thank you, Mr. Mano. I'm just kind of surprised that being geographically located shouldn't matter for me. If you're at UPI or FB Longuero, whatever you teach at that middle school should be taught at Inwan Middle School. There shouldn't be any difference. That kind of bothers me a little bit, but we're going to take a look at this, okay? The oversight chair is tapping and said that doesn't sound right, and it doesn't. I don't agree with that. I was in the Board of Education. I visit every school, and I wanted to see every school have this be treated the same way. We try to fight for the budget. We figure out a way how to fund it. I'm on this side of the street, and we're going to find a way to see how we can get you what you need, because you should not be, the children down south should not be shortchanged because of where you're located. It just doesn't work that way. Whatever is good for the north is good for the south. We just need to figure out a way how we can get this done, okay?
Sir,
and I know what you're facing in around.
Sir, can I clarify that?
Okay.
Because we are geographically separated, it's hard to recruit teachers. So DOE will send me the referrals as they come.
Mr. Mano, Guam is too small. We're not in Orange County going to Sacramento. I understand what you're getting at, but we need to work with this. We're a captive audience. If you travel from Jigu to Iran, it's no different that if you actually look at the folks that are employed at Anderson, they're from the south, and the people at Naval Station is from the north. So it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And let DOE figure this out in management, because I honestly believe it's our students that are at risk. Okay, that's my concern. It's the students. Okay, so let's just figure that out. There's got to be a way to do this. Mr. Martinez.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Martinez. I'm the principal of FBLG Middle School. Currently, I'm requesting for $8.4 million in my budget, and my budget is broken down in different sections as it was presented to you by our superintendent. In terms of personnel services, operations, utilities, capital outlay. Actually, capital outlay is not part of my budget because during the process of our budget, all capital outlay requests will fall under facilities and maintenance. Initially, I did request it for my capital outlay, $2.26 million, and that's to erect a new gym. If you've ever been at FBLG Middle School, and I ask that all of you come to the school, because I would want to go in there one day. I've been there for several years, and it's very, very warm. Sometimes we cannot lift up those things that open the windows and the louvers on the top. Not because we can't fix it, it's because we don't have the money to fix it. And the reason why my issue here is that I've been a principal for many, many years, and the district has not been given their full budget when we requested it. It is a rollover budget. So it's more or less like a Band-Aid effect that we do at the school level. We do, in your question in regards to how much does it cost for janitorial services, that is also listed in every school's budget under contractual services. So if you would like to know the amount of janitorial services for every school, it is listed in every school's budget. Mine will cost about $91,000. And these numbers are basically driven by our business office who deal with these contractual services. I just put the numbers together, I give it to them, and I say, this is what I need. So yes, if you're asking me what is my shortfall, if you don't give us the money, we're going to continue the Band-Aid effect. And you know, if you wear a Band-Aid, you can only use a Band-Aid for so long because the weather will wither it. It will come out. And so we just have to put another Band-Aid. I've been very, very creative at my school level. I tell you, when I entered FBLG Middle School, I didn't have appropriate cafeteria tables in my cafeteria. What I did is I reprioritized my spending at the school level to get these cafeteria tables into the cafeteria. And now when you come to my cafeteria, you will see all our students sitting comfortably. Our air cons don't work because we don't have the money to get these things fixed. And that's the issue that I have. It's not the issue of, it's the issue of shortfalls. We ask, we don't really get. I'm at one of the biggest middle schools, and I know all of you've heard FBLG some way or somehow. We do have our issues just like any school, but we try to tackle it as best as we can with what we have. And I think my colleagues here have done great jobs of doing what they need to do with what they have. I've heard this from a longtime colleague of mine, I forget her name. We always take from Peter to feed Paul. And that's the thing we do at the schools because we don't have enough money. Paul's still gonna be hungry, even if you feed Peter. So I'm asking you, I'm imploring through all of you to give us the money that we so, not me the money, but the schools the money. Because really it goes back to the students, not to me. I have no issues talking up here about money because this is not for me. These are for our students. and it's rightfully so, they need it. I wish I can have a good-looking school, but I do with what I need to. I deal with what I deal with, and I think all of my colleagues here do the same, and they try to do their best. So I'm asking you, and I'm speaking for myself. When you see FBLG's budget, give me my money, so I won't have a shortfall. And that's the issue that I'm going to have, a shortfall. All these things that are listed, and I know that our superintendent and our deputies have spoke to you about it already, they're all listed in our budget. We went through a rigorous process in regards to putting these budgets together. The things that we are asking at the school level are the things that we get from our stakeholders. We get it from our teachers. We also get it from our parents. We do have budget meetings with our parents to ask them what we present our budgets to them, and we say, what do you think we need to get at the school? And they will give us those ideas. So I'm here to implore your good graces to give all of us our budgets at the school level, because we do need it. And if we continue to shortchange our students, imagine the impact in our future. Thank you.
I knew Robert would be like this. I've known Robert from when he was in Agani Heights Elementary.
Want me to go?
Now we got the former principals of in Iran, am I correct? Mr. Meno's here, and the former. Sir, if you could state your name and the school you represent.
Afide, my name is Dwayne Mantononia. I am the principal of Ocean View Middle School. So I share the same sentiments with my colleagues that have spoken before me. I am not one to speak a lot. So to simply put it, our biggest challenge that comes to mind right now for Ocean View would be our facility itself. It is a very old building. Campus, according to our records, it was built in 1959. So we have two wings that are dilapidated, not used, that are condemned. And so also we have a very unique, well, after hearing my colleagues before, maybe not so unique, but our field has nightly visitors that do come out sometimes in the day. So apparently we have wild pigs that eat and dig in our field, and they've made their way into the school building. So they've really torn up our ground. And so right now our soccer field just needs a total resurfacing and regrading. And that's really due to the fact that we have a perimeter fence that a good portion of it is missing. And this is the side right behind the kimchi store area. And aside from that, we have two wings that just were built to be temporary, but have lasted over 20 years, that really need some serious renovation. And so we submitted a budget of about $4 million. Our cost to the allotment we've been given for custodial services is around $60,000. There are times when we still have to cover, for example, like supplies, consumable supplies, paper towels, toilet tissue. Sometimes we do take out of our pockets. Teachers regularly take out of their pockets to purchase every needed item for the students. So I too will also ask for your support in providing the necessary funding for our school and for our students.
Yes, go ahead, Senator Nelson.
Is your school fully staffed? Your teacher-to-student ratio, your assistant principals?
Currently, I do have all teaching positions have been filled, but I do have 2 assistant principals, but it is not reflected on the budget, in the school budget.
In the budget that you submitted to the superintendent, or in the budget that we are receiving from the superintendent?
It's my understanding both.
Okay. So how many assistant principals do you have?
2.
You have 2. And it's not
One-
in the budget, you're saying, the 2?
Yes, let me clarify. 1 assistant principal detailed, and then 1 administrative designee.
Okay, then maybe you got 1 temporary and 1 permanent. I know Tulling's gonna fix that.
But it's not in the budget now.
No,
We're not accounting for it.
no, and I've asked to include
So
it
if we don't
again.
account for it, how many assistant principals will you have?
None.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mantanon,
Yes, sir.
you know, just recently they opened up that new gym down at Ocean View, right?
Yes,
The condemned building is still there?
yes,
Great. New gym, condemned building right next door, right?
yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's as bad as Benevente. Okay. Ma'am?
Good afternoon. Rebecca Perez, Agustin Johnston Middle School Principal. Right now, our budget that we've requested for is up to $5.48 million. And I currently have a vacancy for an assistant principal. One of them has already retired since November. So I have 1 vacancy. So I have 2 on board and 1 vacant. And pretty much the same issues and problems that the other principals had given is pretty much the same issues that we have at Agustin Johnston. As you know, Agustin is a very old building. Yes, we maintain it, we upkeep it because it's an expectation, but the awning is an issue. Kids are walking through the hallways, they're getting rained on wherever the awnings are required. And so I believe it's under capital outlay, so that's not included in the 5.48 million. It's also, I've also requested to have AC placed in our gym, which is going to cost about $50,000 from an estimate that we've received from John Kidichai. So, you know, so the budget that we have of 5.48 million is a whole lot more than what it is if you include the capital outlays. And so the issues that we have besides the facilities, right? We maintain it, we keep it clean because we want to make sure that our kids come to a school that is clean and safe for them, environment for them, and that's where we hold the contractual services accountable for that, and as well as our staff in the school. But I believe that our issue with shortfall in budget is not going to be any different from any department, any other department too, because we rely on other departments such as CPS, mental health, public health, GPD, and sometimes, and you know, we've seen a rise, of course, in mental health issues with our students because a lot of them come from broken homes, you know, be it absent parent, broken, you know, separated parents, single homes, parent homes, but we can't handle all of these issues at the school site. However, when we do request for the assistance of the other departments, one of the concerns that we have is that they also have shortfalls, right? Budget shortfalls. They don't have enough social workers and so forth, and there are times that we can't ask, you know, to have them give us feedback because it's part of their policies, right? Just like CPS. But when you think about it, we all need to make sure that we keep our budget up to par because we all rely heavily on each other to make sure that our students are being serviced for their well-being, for their safety. So if we can consider that, yes, our department is struggling in terms of budget shortfall. And we try to make do with what we have. We work with PTO, we become, you know, we try to work with whatever we have. And we've come to the point when we have teachers out and we don't have enough substitutes to cover the class, and teachers will be out because they're sick, they have parents that are sick, they have whatever issues they may have. Sometimes we don't have enough substitutes, but we don't have enough of that to go around. So we do ask teachers to help us cover. And you know, with teamwork, you know, in the school level, working together to help each other out, that has at least helped us out in that sense in terms of covering the cost, so that way no students are going to be sitting in the gym and not being taught. But like my other colleagues, you know, the issues that we have, when we have fire drills, we don't have PA systems to inform, and even when we do have lockdowns, it's so difficult, right? We have to make sure that we move as quickly as possible, but you have school aides that are light duties, so that makes it also hampers our operations. So if we can have these things funded for us, it would really help us a great deal at the school side, because more so than ever, we have taken on a lot of responsibilities besides trying to educate our children, our students at the school site. So any more budget cuts will hamper our operations at the school site.
Thank you. Is the reduction in substitutes a result of your 5% reduction due to the shortfall that we had in the previous fiscal year?
Well, we're allotted a certain amount of substitutes, right? So yeah, and of course, it's also dependent on who's available, the applicants, the referrals. But even with the 4 that were allotted, it's just not enough. And so we end up tapping on the school aides, and that becomes a shortfall for supervising our students, right? Because now they're having to cover the classes.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah, and of course the teachers can only cover during their prep periods.
Are the teachers compensated when they cover?
Right now, it's
Or how are they compensated?
We try to give them flex time if we can. You know, we try to compromise, right? It's a compromise within, you know. Yes, they can be covered as far as budget. They can be funded, but of course, you know, with the budget cut and so forth.
So they're not being paid for.
No.
For covering down in classrooms.
No, they're not being paid.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Nelson, if I may, to answer your question, yes, it was part of the
5%.
5%, because at the school level, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Talling, it initially was 10%, then we went down to 5%.
Right.
That's why you see a increase of number of, like I would probably have 10 based on my school population, but I only have this much based on the 5%. So yes, to answer your question,
So
it is part of that process that we did.
Right, and then do you also have a shortage of substitutes when you need to fill in for absent teachers?
I have great teachers of FBLG Middle School.
I'm sure they are.
They are, no, really they are.
There are a lot of
and
substitute
because I'm in this public forum, I would like to say that I have really great teachers at FBLG. Kudos to my teachers and my staff at FBLG. In the beginning of the year, we not just this beginning of the year, I've created an environment where, you know, what we have is what we have, so we need to help each other as a team. So basically, because of the middle school concept, we have the teaming concept also. And I think you're familiar with that. So let's say I'm out in a team. The students will matriculate that class into those other classes. The only thing that we do, should a teacher have, those students are matriculated into that class, should a teacher have a prep period, they will take their prep period. We will send someone in there to cover that class.
So your teachers are still taking the prep period?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And if they don't take the prep period because they cover down for another class,
I haven't received any issues regarding that. That's why I tell you, I have great teachers at FBLG Middle.
Yes, I understand that.
And
But do they get compensated for?
Well, I have not turned in any compensation documents, so we don't see that an issue at FBLG, because I said, like, I have great teachers.
Yes, I understand.
So we work as a team.
Yes, I understand, but so the answer to that question is they're not compensated.
They're not compensated because they're not working during their prep time.
I understand. Thank you.
For the record, thank you.
So I'm going to be led to believe that if we can get the increments and the reclassification in, we wouldn't have to worry about any extra pay, right, Robert? Thank you.
For me, sir.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Ma'am,
half a day.
before he runs everybody out, all day the
Okay.
FB.
Go ahead. Okay. Okay. Half a day. My name is Agnes Guerrero, and I'm the principal of Louis P. Antillon Middle School. And just like Mr. Martinez, I do have great teachers and staff. So for my request, I am requesting $8.5 million to support a student population of 1,075 students, 126 employees. For the challenges, as everyone knows, my facility has been newly renovated in the past about 5 years this fall. However, of course, the scoreboard was an issue. However, I want to just commend my staff and my teachers for the upkeep of the facility, because that's the misconception when visitors come by the school, is that it looks newly renovated because it's been renovated, but that's not really the truth. Every summer, every spring, every break we have, the staff takes the time to upkeep the facility. Speaking of staff, like all other schools, I do have a great request for school aides. We do what we do at the school level to support and to ensure safety is in place. However, 7 school aides to support a population of 1,075 students would maybe seem like somewhat short. However, I do request for my office staff, administrators, and of course, the teachers. They come out to support supervision before, after school, and during lunch. As you know, we need to have a staff at the Century, and so that eliminates 6 school aides. And just like human beings, school aides, staff, administrators, we all get sick. And so that, again, poses a shortage. But we do what we do at the school to ensure safety is in place. I am requesting for additional school aides and clerks. I currently have 3 clerks. I do have a counseling office, a student support office, business office, and a main office. All in all, it's not enough to support those offices, because for my school alone, I have about 1,000 plus fixed assets at the school level, which is all accounted for. You can ask Mr. Mark Pito. For curriculum-wise, I am a STEM school, technology school, and aquaponics, you name it. However, we are still in a need of resources. And if you look at my budget, I am requesting for somewhat technology. I do have a total of 20 mobile labs. However, I do have 9 teams, and we are encouraging our students and our teachers to be a Google Classroom, right? That's the technology. And all in all, there's just so much that we can ask for, and whatever we receive, we do without, right? But I feel that if you support this budget, every school's budget, and give what we ask for, I think it will be the first time in many years, because I've been in education for the past 23 years, I have never seen anything that has been completely funded. The whole department, I must really give kudos to everyone, because we're a team, we come together, and we help each other where there is a shortfall or wherever there is need to help. And I just want to say that I'm very fortunate to be in this department and to be in Louis P. Antillon Middle School, because I have a great core of teachers, staff, students, parents, and of course my administrative team that really should be commended for doing a great job with what little we have. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw Mr. Meno look at me when you mentioned the mobile cart, like, I don't even have a cart. I only got a mobile. But anyway, Senators, I'm going to ask you, does any of my colleagues want to pose any questions to the principals at hand? I see that most of them are like, no, not yet. Nope. Okay, we'll get the next group. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You get the next group, but we need a pause because they're going to reset the sound system, PA system. So we'll take another 5 minutes, and then we'll get the next set if the other principals can be. Now I know most of the principals are more comfortable now since you've seen what they went through. Okay? Thank you. 5 minutes. Okay, our system seems to be down, but there is going to be a microphone provided to the principals. I'm just happy that I guess the first batch of principals were the ones that were the guinea pigs, and now everybody's rushing to the table, which is great. You know, you should feel comfortable and feel welcome to be here. You know, we don't want you to feel that intimidated or anything. You know, we're here for you, and you're here for us. Okay, so we just have to share the information so we can get back to the drawing board and see what agency may get short. Not necessarily DOE, but you know, everybody needs to understand that being more than 50% of the GovGuam budget would have to convince the administration that education is a priority, but to a certain extent. But you can be rest assured that my colleagues here will be reaching out to their agency that they oversee to find ways to help you. You don't necessarily have to have the funding, but you can get the agencies to come out and help you. Like Public Works, get rid of those condemned buildings to start. Mayors, go out there and help fix the fence. Do what needs to get done and help you, and not have to cost another agency to reduce their budget total. Okay? Ma'am, we'll start with you on the right, and then we'll work our way, my left, your right. And then hopefully Dexter and the other principals can come down and join us on the next round. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, honorable senators. My name is Mrs. Annette Didasco Salas. I am the principal of Inarahan Shine Elementary School. The total budget that my school requested for was $2,235,993. In that budget, it just accounts for majority of personnel, operations, utilities, and that's it. And yes, my school is very well kept. Thank you to the staff, the teachers, and the custodians there, as well as myself.
Senator Nelson, do you have anything you want to ask?
Hi, Mrs. Salas. Half a day.
Half a day.
Do you have your staffing pattern is complete? Are you having any challenges with maintenance and facilities? If not, then
I can pass.
You can pass the mic or.
Right now, I am fully staffed. I am in the process of replacing my school aide and my paraeducator. Other than that, we are fully staffed. We do have a certified teacher in every classroom, 3 of which are doctors. So that's why my budget's pretty high. What else? No major issues, just when the aircon is down and the time it takes to fix it, because I do have a former board member from Inarahan who loves to come over and check if their ACs are working. So other than that, IES is good to go. No assistant principals.
Do you require vice principals? No, right? Not at elementary?
No, because
just
our
doctors,
enrollments
right? Okay.
Right.
Okay. I'm just teasing. But, ma'am, we'll proceed with the next, because I know the elementary schools, I know you all have a lot of challenges. Some not as much as her, but I know for a fact on the AC issue, when I was on the board, I kept wondering why they weren't getting the higher, the SIR rating, more the industrial air conditioners, so they can last longer, and you can honestly go in there to your classroom and turn them off, and they'll turn on the next day. Because in the past, what the government was procuring were residential air conditioning. If you turn them off too often, they don't turn back on. And in one of the 14 points, when it says reliable power, power is reliable, but the schools are not set up for what you require, because none of the schools had a requirement to have a bunch of air conditioners in the classroom, a bunch of computers, and a bunch of other stuff. And all the schools I know are facing that you're in that predicament. But hopefully we can figure out what needs to get done, and hopefully solar panel will get on your schools, and you'll have power all day, not have to worry about fluctuation. Then the system will just start to fix itself, and that's our goal. Ma'am, we'll start with you.
Half a day, honorable senators. My name is Natasha Faison Dela Cruz, and I am the principal of Manuel Ulloa Lujan Elementary School in Jotnia. My budget request for fiscal year 2020 is $4.5 million. That amount is inclusive and is made up of personnel costs, supplies, equipment, contractual services, and such. All capital improvement projects, of course, are under our maintenance division and are reflected there. I first must acknowledge the amazing, supportive, committed faculty, staff, and our PTO at this school. Because while we do have our challenges every day, we really make do with what we have. The three areas that we are continuously being challenged with, one, of course, is personnel. I do have a certified teacher in every classroom, but in this budget request, I am requesting for an additional Chamorro teacher because of our population, an extra guidance counselor, and additional support staff to include clerks for the guidance counseling department, our nurse, and our library tech. We do currently have a vacancy of a school aide that I've recently interviewed, so that process, of course, is ongoing. Another challenge that I'd like to bring up, of course, is the lack of resources to support the quality of instruction in our classrooms. Our teachers are committed individuals working tirelessly after hours into the weekend to ensure, digging out of their pockets, to really try to provide things for their own students. And that commitment is evident in the relationships and the ownerships that they have with their students. But again, with the lack of updated textbooks and other supplies, it makes it very challenging for them. Our facility issues that we've highlighted are all have been brought up, and of course are in the system, are currently being addressed and identified as with the department and so forth. Any questions?
Test. What are some of the facility issues? Are they being worked on now, or did you submit it and you're waiting for a response?
Some of them are currently being worked on, and others, because of course lack of funding, it's one of those things that have been put until funding is available.
So are there any facility issues that impact the safety of the children that is not being addressed now because of lack of funding?
So one of the biggest things that we're currently waiting for, that I can't say it's not being addressed because it's in that process, and that in being addressed, is the replacement of our canopies that are proceeding to our fast-track Chamorro classrooms. When it rains, it pours, and it affects the students walking to those rooms on a daily basis, of course.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, honorable senators. Catherine St. Nicholas, and I'm the principal of Captain H.B. Price Elementary School. We are the home of the Lancheros. As an elementary school in the Cutton District, the administration, teachers, and staff service an estimate of 745 students, inclusive of preschool gate, Head Start, and kinder through 5th. For fiscal year 2020, the school's proposed budget is $4,971,209. Of that total, $4,298,995 is for personnel. In regards to personnel, I'm asking for 10 new positions. This is in compliance with board union contract. I'm in need of 3 clerks, 5 school aides, 1 Chamorro teacher, 1 school guidance counselor. In regards to substitutes, the school, we have about 40-some teachers, so 10% of that is 4. Right now, with the 5%, we only have 2 substitutes. And so for the next fiscal year, I'm asking for an additional sub to make it 4. For operations, which is inclusive of equipment, contractual services, supplies, and materials, I'm asking for 424,660. And again, it's a variety of technological equipment along with furniture to replace furniture that has been damaged or is wear and tear is already kind of getting to it. Of course, utilities is 247,554. Capital outlay is not included in my school budget. Again, just like Ms. Dela Cruz, who spoke before me, it's under the facilities and maintenance budget. In regards to the challenges that we're having, like I mentioned earlier, personnel. To comply with board union contract, I do need these additional positions. We also have, due to lack of resources, our teachers, even myself included, you know, we use our personal money to get what is needed for the school, for the students. And then, of course, maintenance. We're diligent about putting in our work requests, but again, if funding is not available, the turnaround time isn't always, you know, as fast as we would like it to be. So those are our challenges, but again, despite those challenges, we do work creatively and collaboratively. The faculty, the staff, the parents, the PTO, and our mayor. We really do try our best. I thank them for their unwavering support and commitment to helping to ensure a safe and conducive learning environment despite the limitations that we have. That's it.
They told me the system working. Yeah, the system working now. So if you can press that, let's test that. Let's see how it works.
Half a day. Okay, half a day, honorable senators. My name is John Wasilewski. I'm the principal at Talafofo Elementary. And my budget is $2.77 million approximately. If you ask what is our biggest concern, and I'm going to talk to our teachers, and their biggest concern is they want to teach on Guam. They want to teach at Talafofo Elementary. They want to teach our kids. But then they say, but we have to make a living too. And when we cut the increments and say, oh, that's not important, we can scrimp there, that affects the quality of education because we have dedicated teachers who love our kids, who want to teach them. Unfortunately, they also have to make a living. And so we need to make sure we compensate them at a wage that is appropriate and just for the work that they do. And yes, they want to, but there are places on Guam that pay more to teach, and off island, and they have that choice to do that. But they want to teach ours, so we need to give them that fair compensation that they do deserve. So other areas, as far as our budget goes, things I budget for are 2 additional classroom teachers. Talafofo is small, but we're a growing community. And with that, some of our class sizes are quite large. In fact, we need, in our first and second grade classrooms, we were able to move one of our teachers around and create a combo class, but it's not the most conducive learning environment. So we need 2 additional teachers to cover those classes, which would be normally 28 kids per class, but we were able to move some students around and make a combination class, a multi-age class, which is not the most conducive for learning. So we do need those 2 critical positions. Our ESL population is growing dramatically. Talafofo has a large Micronesian community that's moving into Talafofo, and with that, our ESL population is growing, and we have 1 ESL teacher. We're asking for additional support, not for additional teacher, because the budget constraints, but additional support staff to support that teacher. Same thing with our special education teacher, an additional aide to support her, not an additional teacher, but an aide to support that, because with the growing population at the school, of course, the number of students with special needs is also growing. As everybody around here, our facilities and maintenance need upgrades, particularly our fence. I think one of the middle schools talked about the pigs digging up their field. Well, our pigs are digging up our school garden. Our students want to learn about, agriculture, sustainable agriculture, and planting a garden. But every time they go out there, the pigs have dug up all their plants because our fence line is in need of repair. So, all these maintenance things, they may seem small, but they make a big difference and impact on our students. So, senators, I ask you to fully support the budget that we submitted. And like I say, the fence at Facility Tufts is in the capital improvement with other departments, but the budget that the department is submitted is what we need to fully support our teachers, to fully support our students so that they can learn to their fullest potential. Thank you.
No question? Hafide, I'm Melissa Mofnes, principal for 1M Guerrero. I'm requesting for 4.2 million, and I have 577 students. Primarily, my main concern is the facilities. We have awnings that need to be repaired. Our school needs painting. We are a 2-story building, and so it's difficult, the setup of the way the school is, and so getting to the second floor is quite difficult just because of the structure, right, the ground. We can't get scaffolds up that will secure it properly, so I don't trust that, having my staff or anybody else take care of that. So I've been requesting to kind of take a look into possibly funding to paint the entire school, whether it be additional funding that's needed because it's a second floor. And so we're able to maintain what we're able to reach safely, and then just the awnings and then the ACs. But as for personnel, I'm fully staffed, and I have requested for 6 additional positions, special ed teacher, and then the required based on board union contract, the school aides. Thank you.
Senator Castro, you had a question for the principal from God's Country?
I did.
Talafofo?
I do, Mr. Chairman, but perhaps there's a commonality among the other principals, so I can wait till the panel's done and come back. It has a lot to do with the marginalized student population and inquiring if there are other community resources to deal with that, and perhaps maybe the rest of the principals here can comment about some of the additional stressors. You mentioned language as a potential stressor, socioeconomic status perhaps, so I want to talk a little bit about that, and community intervention strategies, resources, and maybe additional federal funding. You don't have to go into it now, because I imagine, because I know some of the champions at your table who've dealt with this, and so I just want to know how that plays into the budget with your school. So we can wait till maybe 3 or 4 of your colleagues finish, if that's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, senators, for allowing us to speak today. My name is Elizabeth Tymaniel Hanzik. I am the principal of JQ San Miguel Elementary School. Yeah, you're talking about socioeconomic status. JQ San Miguel, we are the school for the 3 locals, Mongmong, Mighty, and Tortu Gardens. So I know what you're saying, Senator, about the socioeconomic status. Come to JQ, because we're right smack in the end of the road. I don't know, some people, you need to Google us if you're going to look for JQ San Miguel Elementary School. Or either that, look for the junkyard. Okay, I'm being nice, Ms. Talling. For JQ San Miguel, I requested $4,454,550. Basically, I want to reiterate what Mr. W. said from Talafofo regarding the increments and the reclassification. With all the mandates coming down from the downtown to my teachers, Common Core, alignment, standard-based grading, all those nice educational terms, right? But when you slap them now and you take away their increment, And that was passed by the previous senators. You know, the budget law, which is, I don't know, you weren't there, Ms. Perez, not even you, Senator Shelton, or you, Moylan. Only the three were here, but I don't know which way they voted. Maybe I need to go take a survey. But anyways, where I'm leading to is, when downtown mandates that teachers are going to do certain requirements, okay? But yet, we don't honor these same teachers because we take away the reclassification. I mean, I'm not talking on behalf of DPW or public health or anybody. I'm just talking about DOE, because I've been with the department for 33 years. And I started in this department as a school aide. So I know how hard it is to be a school aide, to be a teacher, and to be a school administrator. So my teachers have said, you expect us to do this, Mrs. Hanzik, yet our increments are frozen, our reclass are frozen. So in my budget, I did make a request for increments and reclassifications. Reclassification, just so that everybody understands, it's not where it's not a promotion. Teachers have to literally go to school and go beyond their degree. So if you want to become a teacher 3, you need to hold a bachelor's degree and college credits. So, and the department or the government is not paying for those. So that is a reclassification. It's not a promotion. Everybody likes to say you're going to get promoted, but you're not. It's not. You went to school, you earned the credits, you get reclassified. So, and I agree with Mr. W that it needs to be compatible to the state side. But, you know, of course, that's up to you guys. Maybe you guys can change the pay scale. Work with civil service. Maybe they'll help you there. Because I know that a lot of school administrators and teaching personnel and staff are underpaid. But of course, that is this body here that will work with civil service, hopefully. Yeah. Okay. I requested for additional personnel, and the reason why is because according to the board union contract, and I'm all about the contract as the former president of GFT, I follow that contract to the T. So I quoted everything. An ESL teacher needs an 8, give me 1. A SPED teacher needs an 8, give me 1. The guidance counselor and the nurse needs a clerk, give me 1. So everything that the board union contract, I love the contract anyways, because it's really pro school. So I requested for that. I requested for my landscape and the facilities. It all falls under facilities. If you've ever been to JQ San Miguel, I invite you to come to my playground, because it's not really a playground, it's more like a ground with holes. I invite you, because we're located in the swamp area, so that fence line needs to be changed. I made that request. And of course, I've made that request since I came to JQ, which was in 2016. It's 3 years. And every year we make the request, and every year I get depressed because it's rejected from you. Equipment every year. JQ San Miguel, we're poor. When we came there, we didn't even have a mobile cart. Or we did, maybe 1, but I don't know. Now we have 2, hopefully 3 is coming. Now we have to be creative. And we are creative. We got an interactive, what's that board? Whiteboard. Well, it's really a blackboard, but they call it interactive whiteboard or smart board. Thank you. I love it, touch. So we're proposing that we want to put that in every classroom. So I am asking our senators to consider our budget carefully, because whenever the principals come up and we look at our budget, we always have one thing in mind, which is the students we serve. I don't serve anybody else. And I tell the parents that, I tell the teachers that, I tell my mayor that, I even tell my boss, Mr. Fernandez and Dr. Sicola, just so they know. Even the board members, I always tell them that I don't serve you, I serve the students of J.Q. San Miguel. So every time we come up here and we're going to present our budget, it's not that we're just thinking of these numbers out in the air. We actually had to look around and see what exactly do we need. So as far as I'm concerned, I hope that you will pass our budget with very little or none variation. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Hansi. Before I ask Senator Paris, just to remind you, and I know you remember when I was on the board, I was the one that requested, as the chairman of the board, that civil service conduct the study. In 2008, I think, Ms. Gutierrez, we were together, request civil service to do the study, and everybody in DOE, all the teachers got a pay raise. I've already reached out to Mr. Leon Guerrero, the new civil service guy, the director, and I asked him to take a look at it, and he says he'll take a look at it, but the question of the Hayes study that went by, he's going to see what can happen there. And that's something that, if it is possible, I'm going to throw it back at the board, because the board has to request for civil service to conduct a study. Because back then, the teachers in Guam were number, I think, 45, and you went up to number 24 on the list nationwide. Where you at listed, I don't know today. But whatever it is, I'm going to ask the question, but I would actually invite your board members to do their due diligence and just ask the question, civil service, if you can do it, and then we work from there, because I understand where you come from, Ms. Hansi. Okay? Senator Perry?
Half a day, Ms. Hansick.
Yes.
I just noticed the water sewer bill, it went up to, I guess, it's tripled.
My water bill?
The water bill for the school, yeah. Is that
Because I have a big leak on, see, have you ever been to J.K. San Miguel?
Yes,
Senator Paris?
Yes, I have.
Yes, you have?
Yeah.
So you know that the bottom floor is built within the Office of the Landscape? Are you aware of that? First floor is built right there.
Yeah.
It's like one of those,
I just was wondering if you was working with GWA to
yes,
address
we
that
are.
issue?
Yes,
Okay.
we are. And we're working with maintenance to address that issue, because they can't find that leak.
Okay.
You're literally going to have to break that building. And we cannot break the building because it houses 3 classrooms. 1, 2, 3. So we cannot break that. Yeah.
So the other question I have is, how many teachers on staff?
I have 34.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I also noticed there is an increase in benefits, about
All of the benefits, if you're
300,
referring that, is
400,000.
because as a classified employee, the government pays a portion. So for example, if my salary night is like 81,000, yes, with the added benefit, it actually increases it to, maybe I'm wrong. Talin can help me here, but I know that with the benefits, it's supposed to be, am I wrong? Talin, where's Talin? Oh. Yeah. So the benefits is, you know, it pays the insurance, it pays the government portion of the retirement. Am I wrong, Talin? Oh, okay.
Yeah, just
So
a quick question. Has there been a change in the staff from last year to this year?
Yes, I have an increase. I went from 4 kindergarten classrooms to 5. I went from 4 first grade classrooms to 5. I went, right now the teachers haven't grieved me, but I'm supposed to have 4 third grade classrooms. But they've been very good. They said it's going to take forever because there is no pool of candidates downtown. And I don't want to put just anybody in there, so they're willing. So I compromise with them and give them a TA or a school aide to assist. So the reason why there's an increase is because I'm requesting for more personnel. I'm requesting for additional school aide, SPED, ESL. I'm requesting a clerk, secretary, and another clerk. So if I'm not mistaken, maybe 5 personnel. And I'm also requesting for teachers, and that would increase my benefits. Because if my benefits this year is like 400,000, I'm just giving an example, but if I'm requesting for 3 more additional, of course, it's going to go up to maybe 200,000. I'm just saying. I don't know the exact numbers. It depends on the position. So if it's a teacher 1C is different from a teacher 2 and a teacher 3 and a teacher 4 and a teacher 5 and so far. So if I am requesting for a kindergarten teacher, I would request for the lowest level, which is a teacher 2. But if a teacher 1C applies, which is a person with a degree but not in education, they are classified as teacher 1C. So their salaries will be different. So I base that on a teacher 2 salary.
Okay,
Senator.
Ms. Masi.
Thank you, too. I am.
Half a day, honorable senators. My name is Tricia Moylan, and I am the principal of Ordat Chalampago Elementary School. I service I don't service alone, but together with the teachers and staff, we service 530 students. Total appropriations requested for this budget was a little over $4 million. Some of the equipment that I had requested for include chairs and desks, and like others had mentioned earlier, personnel positions such as an assistant principal, an ESL coordinator, and a school aide. I share some of the same facility issues as my colleagues. We do currently still have ACs down in our classrooms. We do have issues with our perimeter ponding basin, but that is currently a project to be taken care of under the CIP, so that's currently being addressed. We do implore the help of the community, so we have a very good relationship with Mayor Gogui and with other community partners. I also just want to acknowledge that the budget process we have for the department is a very thorough process. So each of the principals were given the opportunity, or we gave the opportunity to our community to voice their input and their concerns regarding the budget, and perhaps provide input on what they feel was necessary that the school should have, and maybe some of the challenges that they felt needed to be addressed at the school. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Derek Santos. I am the principal at Estumbo Elementary School. I guess we'll start with the budget that we're requesting for is roughly about $4 million. And as far as our needs, we are addressing our needs currently with our current process of using our custodial funds to purchase the items that we need, because we have been, short funded over the past decades. And so we had to think outside the box to try and get the much needed equipment in our classrooms to replace the dilapidated equipment that have been removed over the years. And so we're currently addressing those items as we speak. Any questions?
Aren't you the school that set up the program where instead of using your funding,
custodial funding,
you're
yes.
able to
Yes.
use that? Can you tell us about that a little bit? Maybe it'll convince others to try to work that. They're like looking at me like, no. But if you can just
3 years
elaborate.
3 years ago, we ventured into this because, again, the department has been short-funded, okay, and not for 3 years, but for decades. And because of that, we've been removing dilapidated equipment year after year, and without replacement. And when I say replacement, it's because we put it in our budget, and we never get the money for it. And literally, we never get the money for it. So we always have to think outside the box, and part of that process is using whatever means we can to get the money into our account so that we can purchase the items. We've been using our Salapi Principat. I think every school does it, but we only buy like 10, 12 at a time, because for one desk, student desk, it's $100, one, and that's not including the shipping. So we have to do the math when you're only given $18,000 to spend on supplies. So we have to try and look at other ways to try and get more of these items in quicker because they break more than we can replenish them. So the custodial concept came into play because we needed to try and replenish these items at a greater, faster speed. So 3 years ago, we were given the opportunity to do so, and the board and the superintendent supported it, and our teachers, kudos to our teachers and staff, because without them, this would not have been possible, especially even our parents and our students supporting this. So we were able to get, instead of paying the companies, for our school, it was $85,000 that was going to the cleaning company. Well, with this, we are able to keep the $85,000 and use it to purchase the much-needed items that all my colleagues are talking about. And we've been doing that for the past 3 years now. Unfortunately, last year with the budget cuts, we weren't able to get the full allotment, understandingly so, because everybody else was cut. But this year, again, with the budget cuts, we went down to about $66,000. But again, it's $66,000 that we have that we can use to purchase the items in our, for our school. So that's how we came about it. But again, it would not have been possible without the teachers and staff supporting the concept. Okay, so again, we're in our third year. We're hoping again to continue this process and provide support to any other school. As a matter of fact, I do believe my colleague, Ms. Asherdy, down at Maritza Martyrs, is also on her first year of doing this, which I applaud her, because that's money that they can use for their school. And so I'm sure she'll sit before you guys in a few minutes to explain that process. But yes, sir, yes, that's correct.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And you, ma'am.
Hafa Senators, my name is Rhonda Rectal. I'm the PTO president at Jose Rios Middle School. I am also PTO treasurer at Agania Heights Elementary School. I am also an English teacher at Southern High School. Okay. So I can't speak to all of the budgeting proposed, except for what my principals in the different schools that I'm involved with have shown me. But I will speak from my experience as a PTO treasurer that's funding. So at our school, at Agania Heights Elementary School, all of the items that is not covered by the budget, I'm one of the lucky board members to inherit a very active PTO. And so we have a very large amount of money that we were able to fundraise, and we have a consistent income as a PTO. And we are able to give back to the school close to $10,000 every year to the school on items that are not covered by the regular GDOE budget. Items such as the playground at Agania Heights Elementary School. It was a safety hazard. Over time, it rusts and falls apart. And so the PTO helped to pay and replace with parent volunteers who came to install the playground equipment. Just this school year, we just completed a teacher grant, or actually for the staff and teachers, where we put aside money specifically for teachers and staff members to compete, to get equipment, to get anything that they would want in the playground or anything like that, programs that they wanted to support, to include curriculum items, which should be covered by GDOE. We did have several teachers request for curriculum items, math books, science, science kits, microscopes, etc. And so these are items that every teacher should already have if they're providing STEM classes and things like that. As far as Jose Rios is concerned, the school there as well, my daughter is very involved in different programs. And as far as budgeting, when it comes to school organizations, a lot of the parents and teachers have to, the students and parents have to fundraise for these co-curricular and extracurricular activities, the sports uniforms, things like that. So it's not that these principals advocate for their staff and faculty and for their students, but they also advocate for the additional programs that make our schools so great and so wonderful to be involved with. Agani Heights Elementary, for example, it's a tradition in our family to go there. My parents have gone there. I went there. My husband was there. That's where I met my husband. And my children all went there. My son graduated recently from George Washington High School. George Washington High School, my husband was the one that was involved with the PTO activities there. They have a bronze statue of George Washington sitting. Miss H.A., I don't know if Miss H.A. is still here. There's a bronze statue of George Washington sitting in the office waiting to be mounted outside of the school that was donated to the school. The statue was donated. And so we're waiting for either volunteers or donations or whatever funding, and it's a capital improvement project to replace that dilapidated monument that's in front of the school. So, things like that. So it's these things that they're asking for, it's really to support all these extra things that students and parents are also going above and beyond to do. So I'm also, as an English teacher, I'm very creative and I like to tell a lot of stories. So I'm going to try and put a connection to all of these things that they're asking for. As a teacher going to professional development, it takes my administrators to give me administrative leave, and they also have to bring in a substitute teacher. So that's money that they need to request. Plus, GDOE is already paying for PD that's being put together either at a hotel conference room, or now we have our Teton High conference room. So one day I was at a PD on the third day of a PD, and I was called back to school because we had teachers that were out or school aides that were out, because we only have, in Southern High School, we only have 1 or 2 substitute teachers. And so those kinds of things, it's money that GDOE has spent for PD, and then it's lost because I'm not there. So that's just my personal experience. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Senator Nelson, do you have any questions? Okay. There are more ladies this time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your testimony. Okay, I apologize, but due to technical difficulties, we have to pause for 10 minutes. No, the rest of you here can step away. It's the next group. The system here has to reset. They ask for 10 minutes before we can continue. Okay? So we'll get a 10-minute pause, and then we'll get the next principals to please come forward. And that'll be the last panel, the last set of principals. And then we'll wrap it up. It'll be real quick. Thank you.